court and city council relations and what's going on. I know there's been.
It was a jurisdictional defect, so it was a pretty significant issue. And to everyone's credit, it was identified, it was corrected very swiftly, so that it was not an ongoing problem. That was affecting cases that continued to come into the municipal court. A review was done of outstanding cases that maybe contained this jurisdictional defect that might have caused issues should someone have chosen to challenge the jurisdiction of the court over an outstanding judgment that was pending against them, and those cases were appropriately wiped out of the system. And as I said, law enforcement worked very swiftly to address this with their new system and make it so we no longer had this problem on the tickets. I don't know how much I would speak about court security, but there's now officers in the courtroom, which is great. I'm a municipal judge in a few different jurisdictions, so I can say that I have a court that has absolutely no security, not a deputy, no screening, nothing. I have this court that now has not only screening of the people who come in, but also officers present during court, which is great. And then I have another court where just deputies are present, but no screening or anything like that, and anybody could bring anything that they wanted into the courtroom. So it's certainly appreciated by me and staff that the court security issue is taken seriously and quickly upgraded.
Can I ask a quick question about that? And for anybody, how does it work? Do you set it up that day and then take it down? And where is it when it's not? Just logistics.
Yes, good afternoon. Absolutely. So in the hallway, if you notice when you come in the main doors, off to the side where the bailiff sits, tucked in that corner, Tommy built a little cabinet so we can put our walk-through detector in there at a site, and it's on rollers, so we just roll it out, and then we have rope stanchions that we kind of rope off to create a walk-through flow area, and that's how we do it. And then we have 2 officers that are working at all times. We have 1 station out there that's conducting all the security of everybody coming in, and then 1 that is in here inside the courtroom at all times.
And is that working efficiently enough? I mean, I would imagine it obviously slows things down a little bit, but an acceptable amount?
It does, but fortunately, the first time that we did it, we ran into a couple of challenges, but we quickly corrected that. Fortunately here, people tend to show up early so we can get them in and through in enough time. And then after that, they're kind of trickling in throughout the morning. So we don't get this huge massive rush of people to where it's causing them huge delays to get in.
Just out of curiosity, has it caught any weapons or anything? I mean, has it had any impact? I mean,
I've not heard of any weapons being found. Initially, the setting was set too high, so it was going off for like shoes and belts and stuff. So we've had to kind of tone that down a little bit. But there's a lot of different pre-settings on there, so we've been able to manipulate that and find the one that works right for the situation.
Great, thank you.
On this topic, there are citizens who have to come into City Hall to conduct regular business that has nothing to do with court. On those days, they just got to go through the magnetometer. There's really no other way to sort of set up dual traffic in and out of the building. So maybe there's a random resident who feels put off by that, but the waits, there's not really a wait ever. So it's not that big of an inconvenience. But I will say this, the magnetometer they selected is nice because it is portable. Should council ever decide that they wanted to set that up for council meetings, it's plug and play. It's ready to go. So just keep that in mind. The topic of public meeting security seems to kind of come up every so often when certain events occur. And so just be aware, we're ready to go should you want to take additional steps.
Great, thank you. All right, please continue. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. And just a final note on that, we have about 15 to 20 cases per hour, so there is never an influx, mass of people that is going to be coming at any set time. I certainly haven't noticed any delay since we've had that in place. The other thing that's going on, that this is mainly being handled by the court clerk, is that the update of the citation codes to match the model traffic code. Obviously, it's a bit of a tedious task, but Ariana's been doing great to get that all done. You all know and are aware of the camp decision that basically came in and did what 1147 was supposed to do last year, that the governor thankfully vetoed, but camp basically overrode that veto, and now we are limited by any state level penalties in anything that we do here in municipal court. So making sure that those codes are updated and match are an important part of making sure we're not doing anything at the municipal level that is more harshly punished than at the state level.
And has anything, as it relates to that, has anything jumped off the page as particularly problematic? Or I'm mainly just thinking of, are there things that, we have here where we had much stricter penalties and, okay.
Fortunately, no, for a couple reasons. One being the kind of cases that are typically handled here, the vast majority, as you all know, is traffic. There's a footnote in the camp decision that basically exempts traffic matters from the holding. Now, it's kind of strange because the rationale that they utilize to get to their decision really makes no distinction between misdemeanors, petty offenses, and traffic matters. So while that footnote currently exempts traffic matters, it's probably only a matter of time before somebody pushes that issue further and says, well, you can't do it on traffic matters either, for the same reason why you said you can't do it for these other offenses. So I don't think that, I know that there's currently not an issue with anything, and we did an immediate review with the city attorney's office to make sure that we didn't think that there was going to be any imminent impact. But that could change as soon as somebody decides to press that issue and say, well, footnote 12 is misplaced based upon the analysis of the case. So we'll see when and if that happens.
I did hear, and this is a very loose rumor, but obviously this is a very big deal for Aurora. And I have heard grumblings that they might be looking at well, they've already challenged it and lost, and that, looking at a ballot initiative.
Well,
So,
it's certainly
we'll see.
an attack on the Home Rule Authority.
Yeah.
And I can't begin to tell you where I think it's ultimately all going to fall out, but the legislature certainly no friend to Home Rule Authority, so we're not going to have any friends there in terms of challenging it legislatively. So.
Can I assume that any changes that are made will have to come before us to be approved?
Any changes to the code, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, we've been talking about this for a while, but sort of overhauling the municipal
Yeah.
court provisions generally, and it's really great that we'll have the opportunity to work with Judge Elman on that.
Okay.
And that kind of dovetails with one of the next points, which is updates to the code, and that's an ongoing. I obviously think that is a dual kind of responsibility of the city attorney's office and then courts looking at how specifically the court process possibly needs to be updated. And there's been a good cooperation between myself and my staff and the city attorney's office, including updating the standing orders of the court. I've taken an opportunity to review all the standing orders that were in place.
What is the standard?
That's what I was going to say.
So standing orders are basically orders that apply to every single case that come before, things like how discovery is done, how records are sealed, the standard rules of the court, okay? And so I've looked at a lot of those and drafted what I think are appropriate updates. I've been sending them on to the city attorney's office to get their assistance in seeing if there's anything that they feel is out of line from what I'm proposing or things of that nature. So it's a good cooperative approach that we're taking on that, and we've updated some of them already. There's some that just today we were emailing about. So I think we'll have a full set of updated standing orders here before too long. The other part of that is the standard operating procedures of the court, which are not court orders. They're just how the court operates, how we handle jury trials, for example, how we handle defaults, and basically just how the court operates. Those are the SOPs. So I'm in the process of reviewing those as well to make suggestions on things that need to be updated, streamlined, things of that nature, things that are outdated that, maybe worked 10 years ago, but probably are not appropriate in a digital age, or things of that nature. So we're in the process of reviewing all of those things as well.
And are those standing orders and standard operating procedures, are those published somewhere? I mean, in other words, almost everything we've got you can find online, but I've never seen anything about our court operations. I mean, does it exist somewhere? I mean, if I wanted to just look at it just for interest purposes, just for educational purposes, how would I get a hold of those?
Well, in terms of the standing orders of the court, they're not, to my knowledge anyway, published anywhere. Obviously, when they apply to a specific case, they can be given to a defendant or their attorney, but they're not, to my knowledge, they're not published anywhere that I know of. Most attorneys who practice in criminal courts know that there are standing orders.
Sure.
And so when they think that there might be an applicable one, they make an inquiry to the court as to whether there's any standing orders in effect as to this issue, and then the staff will provide those issues. The standard operating procedures are not something that, that's just kind of how the courts run. So that's not something that, to my knowledge, has ever been in any court I'm aware of, just out there for the public to peruse. For example, if we were going to do a jury trial and somebody wanted to know, like the defense attorney wanted to know what's your procedure, then we might provide that SOP to them in advance so they know how we're selecting our jury panel, what we're doing in terms of allowing questions versus not during voir dire, things of that nature. But same thing, to my knowledge anyway, not published anywhere, and I don't know that would be necessarily appropriate to be published. The standing orders, maybe, it could be a page on a website that people might want, but I don't think generally most people, unless you're a defense attorney, I don't think you're generally concerned about or looking for those things. But
So are those equivalent to like rules of procedure in federal court?
the
Are those
standard-
equivalent to rules of procedure in federal court, or it's
Not
different?
really. Those are court rules. The standard operating procedures are, for example, what Ariana's job is when we have a jury trial that's set, how she has to set up the courtroom, how many jurors or potential jurors we're going to bring in, where we're going to get them from, all that. It's really just kind of the operating manual for how we run our court. Okay. So it's not, the rules of procedure are for attorneys to know how they are to conduct themselves in court. That's different. Maybe the standing orders are a little bit more along those lines, but a little bit different. Yeah.
And so for the operating procedures, I understand that those wouldn't be something you would publish on the website, just like we don't publish, how our director of finance, reconciles the statement and those types of things. But I assume, I think one of the things that you guys were working on is documenting them for your own internal use, right? So that when Ariana wins the Mega Millions and decides that she's not going to keep working for us anymore, that somebody else would be able to take that on.
There's that, and there's, quite frankly, just the fact that, I keep coming back to jury trials, but the fact that we don't do jury trials hardly ever. So we want to make sure that we have standard operating procedures that are in place, so when and if that happens, we don't look foolish because we don't know what we're doing. That everybody's on the same page, we know how to do this, we have a procedure in place, we're efficient, and we look like we know what we're doing at the end of the day, for lack of a better phrase. The annual review and update of the court fines and fee schedule. So what I will tell you is, obviously I don't get into the budgetary aspects of the court, but what I will tell you is, not only practicing previously before I started doing my judge duties in municipal courts, but also being a judge in other jurisdictions, our fines and fees are, I think, lower than what they ought to be. Municipal courts are not, from my perspective, to be a profit center for the city, but they also the fee schedule and things of that nature need to be appropriate for the work that's being done and the service that's, quite frankly, being provided to the city. The municipal court is part of public safety, after all, at the end of the day, and so everyone benefits from the municipal court and the work that goes on there. And I'm part of the Municipal Judges Association. This is a frequent topic on the listserv about, hey, what is everybody's standard court costs, and do you have fees for this, and do you charge for this? And I will say that here our court costs are lower than in most of the jurisdictions, certainly in most metro jurisdictions, and they could, and probably, in my humble opinion, should be higher. That's obviously a decision for you all to make, but I think that we could stand to up some of those standard court costs and fees to address just the general rising nature of the cost of everything, including running a municipal court, and the time that it takes staff to perform all their functions. And that dovetails with what we're trying to do in terms of modernizing the court, moving more to a paperless court that requires different and additional technology. The legislature, again, going back to that, are talking about not exempting municipal courts from the live streaming, and there's a cost to that. So there's always costs that are associated, and I believe that Cherry Hills is lower than what most metro jurisdictions are, and what they probably should be, given what's going on and what needs to be done. So that's something that
Mayor, I have a question for the judge.
yes.
Yeah, Councilor Robinson.
Just related to that, as I'm thinking about it, would you say that the vast majority of folks that appear before you are not residents of the city?
I think that's very accurate. I think the majority of people who are coming through are they don't appear to be residents. They appear to be just utilizing the roadways because, again, we're talking about primarily traffic offenses. And I don't know, obviously, where every single person lives. It's on the ticket, but I don't undertake that analysis. But certainly, it does appear that the majority of the people, when you look at their driving history and where they, the majority of their traffic history is from and things like that, it's pretty obvious they're not Cherry Hills residents because they don't have a bunch of Cherry Hills offenses showing up on their driving history and things of that nature.
But you indicated you think that our fees are lower than what you've typically seen, but then you also said, but that's not really your area. Whose area is it? Yours?
Yep.
I mean, my sense is then I think we ought to instruct staff that we want that looked into. Or
Exactly.
whoever's area it is, somebody ought to look into it and.
This has
tell us
long
where
been
we
on
stand.
my to-do list of, and it's one of the reasons why you have a lot of these fees are embedded in your code. And historically, or not that long ago, we've pulled everything out to do it by resolution. And that allows for a lot more flexibility. And we can talk with the judge about whether it works doing it that way or whether it works through his court, right? We still have some decisions to make on that.
A few years ago, having this conversation would have been extremely stressful for staff. Now with the fee schedule, like, we should invite it. It's begging for us to update it.
Well, you're so invited.
Well, and I guess my question is that the criteria that are used to set that in other jurisdictions, I'd be curious to know what they are to see where we may or may not be different so that we're not arbitrary and just picking a number out. I'd like to kind of know how those fees are typically set so that we can then compare it. And, if we have a much more high-priced hourly rate for all of the staff involved, then obviously we'd be higher than other jurisdictions on the same thing. But I wouldn't want to leave a category out that ought to be included in that calculation of what the total fee is. For instance, when you mentioned all of the costs of going digital, and, maybe a rainy day fund for the event that you end up needing to have public participation by remote means, we should probably be collecting a small amount on each one for the event that if ever becomes necessary. And, obviously, I just want to make the number right.
And in my experience, I don't know, typically what I think happens is what I've already alluded to. Clerks send out on their listserv, judges send out on their listserv, hey, what is everybody doing in terms of their standard court costs? And are you finding that there's a shortfall? And so they're kind of doing a survey of other jurisdictions to see what they do and what they're basing it on. And then they come back to their council and say, this is what we think we need to do to not only cover our costs, but be in line with other metro courts of similar size and caseload and things of that nature. And then those decisions are made. But obviously, again, not my decision at the end of the day, it's yours, but I agree it's something that needs to be looked into more closely based upon where everything's going.
And we definitely wanted to, bring it to your attention tonight to let you know that we are working on it. It will be included in our annual review of our fee schedule, and it will go through that normal annual process, but court for sure will be included in that fee schedule this year.
So that brings us to kind of some additional requests that we're making for council to ultimately consider. Obviously, I am currently the presiding and only judge in Cherry Hills. So if I were to be sick on a day that docket was set, there would be a problem. Ultimately, I think there needs to be some swift action on getting a relief judge or judges instituted here. I can tell you that different municipalities do this differently. Some are very informal about how they do it, and some are much more formal about how they do it, putting out a full RFP and conducting interviews and then swearing them in. Other jurisdictions don't put out an RFP, they just put out a post, for example, on the municipal judges listserv saying, hey, we're looking for relief judges here. Anybody interested, please let us know. And then they do an interview process. And some, like in Morrison, where I'm the judge, they just said, look, find a relief judge that you feel comfortable with that's going to handle court the way you handle it, and we'll get them sworn in. So it's entirely up to you all how you want to do that, but I think a decision needs to be made by council very soon as to the process you want to implement to get relief judges. I recommend there should be 2, because typically what you're talking about in part-time municipal judges who would be potential relief judges is they have, as do I, multiple jurisdictions. So you might call somebody and they're already committed in some other jurisdiction and not available. So you probably want to have 2 options. Whether you feel you need to do the full RFP process or whether you want to do something more informal, obviously that's to your discretion. I would like to be involved in the process because I think it's important as a presiding judge that I have a desire to have whoever is sitting in my place when I'm not there conducting court in a similar manner as to how I would do it, because I think the public demands consistency in how things are handled. And it shouldn't vary depending upon who's sitting up there on that day. In other words, as a defense attorney, I know if I get a good judge sitting in one day, my client has hit the jackpot maybe, or they're in trouble. And it shouldn't be that way when you're coming to a municipal court. It should be consistent regardless of who's sitting up there. So I would appreciate being involved in the process of picking any relief judges.
So do we want to take a pause here and discuss that a little bit?
Yeah, and let me just,
Thoughts?
before you start talking about it, I'll just say, when we identified the process for changing the code to allow for eligible judges to be from a wider range, we went through the hiring process with the judge. Staff had already begun to do various efforts to modernize the court, looking longer term about the long-term success of the court. But we identified, we being the collective staff and city council, as we went through the hiring process, identified additional opportunities to really help improve the overall operation of the court. And at the time that we went through the hiring process, we had discussions about possibly doing an RFP for more than one judge at that moment. And you might recall, the decision was made to actually hold off on anybody else so that we could utilize the fine guidance of whatever judge we may hire. And I think that bears out today. I think the advice that judge is giving is excellent. I would concur with that advice. So I think a lot of what you're seeing here today is staff and the court being a larger court, continuing to work forward on these ongoing efforts that were identified through that process to bring it all up to the next level. So these next few items, I think you just do them one at a time because they're all for your input.
So I think I'm just gonna jump to a conclusion here that everyone probably would accept Judge Elman's recommendation about 2 judges and that he be involved in the process. I assume there's consensus on that. And Doug, you could give maybe a thumbs up so I can see if you're, okay, yep, so there's consensus there. So I think the question really that we have to decide is, how formal from an RFP process like we did before down to, hey, you go find some people for us. Where on that spectrum do we want to be? Oh, yeah, Doug.
Yeah, so I think that we want somebody that fits well with Judge Elman. So I'm in favor of having the judge identify a few candidates, and then was it Susan and Katie that were driving the process for Judge Elman's selection, that you would interview them and have at least my support in making a final decision.
Okay, Councilor McGuire, were you going to say something?
Do we have any requirements on, I know we did an RFP process for Judge Elman. Do we have requirements around hiring that we have to follow any kind of process?
And these are professional services, so they're exempt from the RFP requirements for your purchasing policy, and that's pretty standard practice.
I like the idea of the judge sifting through the first candidates and making recommendations to maybe 1 or 2 people on council to have a look at before a final decision is made. I don't know that I'm necessarily comfortable with just go out and find a few people. I think I would feel better if there was maybe not a full-blown RFP, but at least some kind of a form that people fill out that say, here's my experience, here's where I'm licensed, here's, whatever, so that we've at least got something that gives us a background. And I'm not saying it has to be posted somewhere for a month before it's done. I think the sooner we can get somebody in, the better. But I think there should be some type of standard format that the applicants are brought in under.
That's where I'm at, some sort of solicitation that's not a formal RFP or RFI, and maybe then screened and gone to council, as you discussed.
The question I guess I would have about this proposal is, do you want sort of like a sit down with the 2 candidates, or however many, with some council representatives and the judge? Would
I'm
that be the
okay
best way to do it?
I personally am okay with the judge going through the criteria, interviewing people, and then sending one person for us to look at and say, yes, we're okay with that, or?
I think you're going to want 2.
Yeah,
Yep.
2, yeah.
Okay. I'm good with that.
Councilor Fisher?
So absolutely, Judge Elman, thank you for requesting that you're involved, because that was really what we wanted in a presiding judge. Is there a way to have, kind of what Councilman McGuire was talking about, almost the stuff that would be in an RFP in the posting? Do you know what I mean? So that the posting itself was, I know that an RFP takes a really long time, and I don't think that's necessary.
I will tell you, I think most jurisdictions do exactly what you're talking about. They don't
Okay.
do a formal RFP. They put it out wherever they want to put out, whether it be on the municipal judge's listserv and website, whether it be some posting somewhere else, Colorado Lawyer, wherever you want to put it. That would have to be where you decide. But with the criteria, I think you want the same kind of criteria that you were looking for when the RFP for my position was out there. Minimum of 5 years experience,
Right.
Preferably municipal court experience.
Availability on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right, and,
Yeah.
so that you
But-
don't get a bunch of people who,
But I don't think you need to do the full-blown, I personally don't think you need to do the full-blown RFP. Just solicit people who have interests we can determine, from there if we want to interview people, if you're leaving that to me ultimately, and then to make the recommendation to council, you just have to decide, do you want me to recommend 4 names to you so you can pick 2, or do you want me to just pick the 2 who I think are the best to recommend you so you can approve them? You just kind of have to, I think, decide how you want that to go.
So what about you communicate with us when halfway through the process? I've gotten, 10 applicants, I've gotten only 5, whatever it is. I think that might give us a sense for how involved we want to be at that point.
Other comments?
I guess, I think it makes perfect sense, obviously, for you to be involved. In fact, I'm curious, because one of the things it talks about in the staff memo is with regard to continuity of court operations, finding it hard to figure out how continuity would exist if, in fact, you were not involved. So that makes perfect sense to me at the end of the day. And I'm fine with what Councilor Fisher said and McGuire. Obviously, we want to get the bona fides and just be able to understand who they are at the end of the day, and including as well, if you've got experience with whoever the people are, relationship and experience, et cetera, that you've worked with them before or not. That would be part of what I'd want to know, in addition to their bona fides as well, so. But I'm all in favor of that, and quite frankly, I'd be in favor, you just going forward, but I'm also comfortable with being advised midway through, but I wouldn't need to, I'm not as concerned about that. I'd like to get right to the end product there, so.
Councilor Ebert, or Councilor, which of you wants to?
Either way. I was just going to say same thing. So I think this was the middle of the road option of the 3 you gave, and I think that's the right one, a solicitation. I don't feel the need for a middle of the road, check-in either, if it's really important. I suppose it's not a big deal, but I'm good with Councilor McGuire's suggestion. Get it down to 2 finalists, and whoever we designate signs off.
I'll come back to you, Rob, but I feel like when we did the RFP for the presiding judge, we ended up, how many applications did we receive?
Oh, my goodness.
It
There's
was
been
not an enormous
So
amount.
many disasters since then.
I know, it was not an enormous amount.
No, I want to say, I was going to say 6, 5, somewhere in there.
Yeah, and we ended up interviewing.
Yeah.
So,
I will say, if we do a much lower bar, which is kind of an RFQ, request for qualifications, they don't have to put a bunch together to submit. It's really, frankly, what we're all talking about. My suspicion is that lower bar might generate a few more responses.
okay.
Well, and also leaning on Judge Elman's contacts a little bit, sending it out to the judge listserv with those lower response requirements, we might get more interest as well. So we can definitely see, I can talk to Catherine, our HR manager, and find out, hey, where did we go last time? Let's make sure we post in the same places, as well as from Judge Elman, where else can we make sure this is out there so people are aware of it?
Yeah, okay, Councilor Ebert.
I think when we first considered filling the position of the presiding judge, we talked about sort of the idea of whether or not we wanted to hire 2 judges at the time, and we kind of came down with the idea of, the presiding judge in essence is sort of like a head coach, and these would be assistant coaches sort of lining up so that your involvement in making sure that the court continues to run in a way that you now, as a presiding judge, feel it should run, was sort of an idea that we wanted a lot of deference left in your hands as to sort of hiring who it was that would be working with you when you're not around on those moments. But I think equally importantly, when we talk about RFQs, I think there has to be sort of some fair protocol out there so that somebody doesn't say, oh, I never even knew about it. And, the municipal judges listserv seems to me like a really good listserv that has everybody on it that hopefully is well qualified or at least involved enough to become a part of a listserv. And I would almost say that that would be the place that I would recommend posting it and then leaving it to you to move forward with talking to the different applicants and see what works well for you, if you know of somebody individually also who's not part of the listserv. I think the idea is that they at least see the listserv announcement so that they can formally make a response instead of, oh yeah, Judge Elman called me and I'm applying, and we don't have any paperwork to know who they are. As Councilor Holden said, I think we just want to make sure that we are comfortable that this person is qualified to be, as much a teacher as you are, as much a, leader of the courtroom, and, able and capable of handling anything that comes before the court. I think those are the things that we care about.
So I think that we have consensus here that what we'd like to do is some sort of request for qualifications posted at least to the listserv. Oh, Doug, sorry, didn't see you down there.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to echo Rob's comment. I think his sports analogy is particularly applicable tonight, but I see it exactly the same way, that we've hired you, Judge Elman, as the head coach, and so we want to have a team, a team that you're in charge of and really comfortable with. So my perspective is that having you serve up the candidates that you like the best for approval by a group appointed by the city council makes the most sense. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you. So yes, I think we'll do that. We'll post that, and it should have some sort of standard format that probably similar, the information they're providing in terms of their background experience, et cetera, so that everybody's providing the same information. And then we'll defer to you to interview those candidates, or however you do that, and ultimately make a recommendation to council. I think the only remaining question I have is, I'd be fine, because the reality is I'm going to lean very heavily on your recommendation, because you have far more experience than I do or anyone here. So I would be fine with you recommending your top 2 candidates to council, and then we would review those, backgrounds and resumes, and either approve, or if we had concerns, raise those. But are people comfortable with that, or would you rather see, 4 people and we then choose 2 of the 4? Or?
I'm good with 2, but I think someone from council should actually interview them and not just review their qualifications. One or
Okay,
more people from
interesting.
council, yeah.
I was not thinking that, because again, I don't.
I think it's a good practice, Mayor, just because the judges report to us, even if you may be the coach and the like. And I think just getting to know them through the process, making sure we don't sense any issues on paper or in person.
So that's an interesting question. Do relief judges also report to us? Yes, okay.
I mean, I'm happy to sit in if that's the route that people want to go. I'm also happy, I guess I'd prefer to at least be involved in, one of us be involved in the process up front. Heavy deference to Judge Elman, but at the same time, I think that sitting in is probably our due diligence as council.
Yeah.
So,
Sitting in on, I'm sorry, before recommendations are made, or
correct.
after?
On actually, if you get 10 resumes and you choose to, I don't know, if you interview all 10 of them, I guess we probably ought to be in all 10 of them, but I got to imagine that you're going to narrow it down.
So that was not the.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with the judge interviewing, let's say there's 10, all 10, and saying, here are the top 2, either of whom I think would be qualified per the position. I'm even okay if the judge were to say, my preference would be this one, but these are the top 2 candidates I have. And then we interview those 2 candidates, not the whole council, but I would say 1 or 2 people from council interview. I just personally would feel uncomfortable having someone who's going to be a judge representing the city without one of us at least interviewing them. So, but I don't feel a need to be sitting in on the initial
Well, and I'm happy to stand corrected. If we just want to wait till the finalists and then jump in as part of an interview, that's fine too. I don't need to think that we need to be at the initial stages even before we
Yeah, I
whittle it
think
down.
that was where most of the comments were sort of, okay. Is that
I would recommend two. Just
two
best
people?
practice.
Okay.
Two people do.
Just one follow-up. Counselor Fisher, you had raised an interim step thing. Are you good with?
So thank you. I was going to bring it up again at communication with city council. I'm just trying to normalize more communication with us and the judge because that's where that's what we talked about was so important. I will say, I never even knew our former judge. So that was why I suggested that. Thanks for bringing that up, but I was just going to wait till we got to communication.
So just clarifying questions. So my recommendation is for two council members to sit in on that, but that's up to you. And then I guess my other question is if there's going to be some sort of question and answer format, do you also want the judge to sit in on that process? Or do you want him to just basically come up with his finalist and hand it off?
So I guess I'm trying to, I feel like hiring or appointing someone that we've never even met feels a little uncomfortable. But I'm also having a hard time thinking of it as an interview. Because frankly, if he has recommended them,
Yeah,
there's there are no questions that I'm going to ask that he hasn't already asked. There's no, I don't know.
Yeah,
what we
exactly.
get
I
from
mean,
that.
and the issue is, and we've got other attorneys on here, not to say that they wouldn't be, do something in the interview process, but I really think at the end of the day, you pick them, and then at that point in time, the next step, it's actually a 3-step process. You're getting down to 2, then the next step is 2 members of council are meeting with those. That's the next step in the interview process. But I mean, it's, at that point, it's just to do what you said. Hey, fitting in, character, culture, whatever, the overall fit. And then the 3rd step is they're going to come before council and be approved. I think that's really all that needs to be done. I really think, because that's. to
So
your
I'm
point.
more comfortable with a sort of a concept of a meeting and less of a, question and answer interview. Yeah, a little bit of a meet and greet. I think that is very appropriate for them to get to know us and for us to get to know them before we appoint them to what is a pretty important position, so.
To me, it's more than a meet and greet because it's a meet and I've been in situations where someone's gone through with flying colors and they get down to the last interview and suddenly they say something or they act in a way that you're like, whoa, where did this come from? May not happen, but it's not just a meet and greet. It's you got to pass this last step, just as long as we're clear on that. It's a final assessment.
Yeah, that's why sort of, Susan. You can still in that meeting, or council's got to approve. So there are other
Yeah.
steps.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying,
I mean, if during that meet and greet, the person said, or let's not call it a meet and greet, but a meeting. But I prefer to think of it a meeting as opposed to,
it's.
yeah, of us
okay.
sitting on one side of the table and
Yeah.
them
It's
sitting
not-
on the other side of the table and us asking all the same question.
So
Yeah,
it's not-
right?
Meet and greet's the wrong term, but it's not going through all the same questions again, I think is what you were saying.
Yeah.
It's
It's a final vetting.
a final
Yes.
vetting. That's the way to say it.
Is that okay? Okay. And I'm okay, Councilwoman Fisher. I think I would appreciate, when you get the RFQ out there and you get your responses, an update saying, just to let you know, we got 10, we got 20, we got whatever. About this many look good. I'm going to talk to these people. I expect this to happen then, and here's where we are in the process. Is that all you're asking for? Okay. Yeah, I'm good with that. An update.
And I think that makes sense. And to another comment, I don't think just putting it out on the municipal judges listserv is necessarily the best way to go. It definitely should be put out there. But for example, not every qualified candidate, especially for a relief judge position, is already a member of the Municipal Judges Association. Or in other words, I would have not ever been in Centennial
Right.
if that relief judge position, which was the first judicial role I ever had, was only put out on the Municipal Judges Association listserv, because I wasn't a member yet. So there's lots of, I think, qualified candidates that are not going to solely be in that forum. So I would recommend you, in addition to there, you decide where else you want to put it out there, but I think limiting yourself only to that forum, probably cutting out some potentially good candidates.
Well, I think we should post to that, and I think we would be open to
Yeah, to wherever you think
your
it's appropriate.
suggestions, because we don't know where to find those people.
We have other ideas, right? And for example, the attorney listserv frequently receives, postings, notice of postings for positions like that. And I'm sure Catherine has some other ideas.
And that goes back to, making sure I use my resources as well as the judge and HR to say, hey, where have we gone before? Where did we find the judge? Where do you know that we should go as well? And really, I don't want to say plastering everywhere, but that's kind of my plan, just to cast that net as wide as we can.
Okay, so I think we have consensus there, and we can move on to the next item, which is the hiring a collection service. So back to you.
So as to that, I was kind of surprised when I got here and I learned that there was no collection process in place. So basically, what it amounts to is if somebody gets a sentence order that includes fines, fees, and costs, and they don't pay that immediately, the vast majority of people are paying it that day, but several people need 30 days or whatever. We set, at that point, we set what's called a pay or appear date, where they're required to either have it paid by that date or they're required to be back here. If somebody doesn't show up for that, well, there's nothing that is currently done. So Ms. Newman can tell you the numbers, but basically you've got thousands of dollars out there of uncollected court costs and fees and no enforcement mechanism, especially since we can no longer do, and this is one I'm not necessarily opposed to, but you can't be arresting people anymore for not paying their court costs and fees and things like that. I will tell you that almost every municipality that I'm aware of has a collection agency doing their unpaid collections. There's at least 2 that appear at every municipal judges conference to solicit work from the judges that are there representing their cities. I think it's something that is needed and important and should be implemented as soon as possible. How you go about, again, an RFP for that service, I certainly don't have any personal recommendations for you one way or the other. I can tell you who we use in Centennial. I can tell you that it's not consistent across the jurisdictions. They all use different ones. But I think you probably need to have that something that you implement right away, because we're impotent to do anything about somebody who just blows off their court obligations.
Just out of curiosity, what's that, would you guess is kind of the average assessment against somebody?
Well, the average assessment against somebody obviously depends upon their level of offense and their history and things like that, but I know Ms. Newman's prepared with the numbers of the outstanding.
Yeah, so right now our accounts receivable for court is about $45,000. And of that $45,000, $34,000 of that is greater than 120 days old. And so that is, in my mind, kind of what would be available to go to a collection service.
But that's spread out over how many people?
Yeah.
Good
So like
question.
each
I can
one
pull
is,
that.
125, or each one is 2,000, or, because how does a collection agency collect something that's $125?
Well, they're
Yeah.
Okay, so Susan, you originally asked like what somebody's assessment would be. What I see most, so you have like no proof of insurance, right? They're getting 4 points on their license either way. It's either going to be a $275 ticket if they got insurance, or it's going to be a $525 ticket if they didn't get insurance. Why would you pay that? Like, there's no, you can get a warrant for not paying, but there's no teeth on that payment. So a lot of that is coming from tickets that they're going to get the points either way, and also tickets where there's no points assessed. So you have obstructed windshield or tint or failure to have a seatbelt on. All of those tickets, I would say a good 75% of those tickets, also parking, are not getting paid. and there's nothing, they're just in a file. And if somebody calls and pays, then they call and pay. So that
And those
chunk
are
of,
less than 100 each?
I'm sorry,
Less than 100 each?
for what?
For those no points?
For the 0 points would be anywhere from $25 to $75.
And I'm assuming that collection services get paid on, so they keep some percentage and.
Yep.
So I think my initial response is that, we ask our police officers to go out there and do this work on our behalf and conduct their law enforcement activities on our behalf. It isn't about the money. It's never really been about the money, but I do think it's about, I guess, making our commitment to what we have said, which is that, if we're asking people to be out there writing tickets, then we should be willing to follow through and see that the consequences of those actions are actually delivered, right? And so I would be in favor of hiring a collection service, because they keep a percentage of what they recover, and because it isn't about the money, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, but to pick up a little bit more on what you're saying is, I think it's the fair application of justice. I mean, that's really what it is in my mind at the end of the day. And I'm all favor of getting a collection agency. I think that makes perfect sense.
If I could just
That's
jump in and-
what I meant to say.
the fair collection of justice. This is a process that many municipalities are well acquainted with and have been utilizing for a couple of years now, since some other leverage was removed by the state legislature.
Other thoughts? Anybody feel differently?
Certainly in favor. I'd like to see the RFP. I'm not sure how exactly you do this. Not see it physically, but address the issue of behavior of collection agencies that has gone south in many instances. There's lots of case law and the like around the country. So monitoring and making sure that they're adhering to reasonable standards and not getting too aggressive.
Absolutely, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to go out to RFP for this one, so we could really vet that service, look at reviews, talk to other cities who are they using that they have not had blowback from.
And some sort of ongoing metrics. that
Exactly,
maybe,
ongoing monitoring.
Obligation
and-
to report other engagements or the like where they do have complaints or the like.
Well, and also amount of information they're requesting from us so that we know approximate staff time moving forward to this. But those are definitely there. And if you have other suggestions, thoughts, please let me know because we can include them in those RFPs.
Any other thoughts? Doug, thumbs up, or did you have any comments, or?
Yeah, I'm in favor of hiring a collection service and being careful about who we hire.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, and then, so now we're on to the final bullet on this slide, at least, the communication with city council and oversight.
So that dovetails with what Councilwoman Fisher was talking about. Obviously, I have no direction one way or the other as to how you all would like to communicate. I think, obviously, I'm required to maintain my judicial independence, but that being said, there is nothing, in my opinion, wrong with maintaining good communication with council as to issues that they hear about in the community, things they want maybe a different level of attention paid to, things of that nature. Obviously, as long as it's not interfering with the judicial independence, I think that is helpful and appropriate for all parties involved. I don't know currently what you did in the past in terms of that communication, but I think formalizing.
That would be nothing.
Okay.
So.
So I think formalizing, whether we do this kind of thing, however often you deem it to be appropriate, I would like some direction from you all as to how you would like ongoing communication with the court to happen, and I'm in favor of it.
So I think that, as people had said, a lot of council members maybe had never even met people who were serving as our judges before. They were longtime Cherry Hills residents, and they just sort of did their thing, and it felt, at least from this seat, that it felt like it was running smoothly, like clockwork, and we have enough to deal with on our own, that we weren't as perhaps involved in that as maybe we should have been. So I think none is definitely not enough. And I don't know if you have, because it can be a really fine line between, getting into your business as a judge. What do other jurisdictions that you work with do? And what are some, do you have ideas for how we might structure this?
Centennial, I do nothing in Morrison, but Morrison is a much different court than this. So in Centennial, about once a year, they have me come in and have dinner with the council, and it's very informal, and they just ask whatever questions they might have. That just happened for me in Centennial a week ago. Other jurisdictions I know set either semi-annual or quarterly meetings with council, similar to kind of what we're doing here. I don't know that that's necessary to do it quarterly or anything like that. It can be semi-annually or annually, but some formalized level of communication I think is helpful for all parties. Obviously, if you all are hearing concerns from the community about something that's happening in courts and there's no avenue to convey that to me to either dispute, agree with, or change things, then nothing is improving. And so I think those lines of communication are important to happen. So again, I'm open to however you all feel comfortable having that communication, but I think there probably needs to be some more than maybe what you've had in the past, it sounds like.
Mayor, I think our recommendation, we've been comparing notes everywhere we've ever worked, and then sometimes venturing into some other jurisdictions as a part of our job. Without exception, is usually a formal or semi-formal annual, usually a presentation similar to this. The most formal I saw was the judge would come forward with some statistics, obviously working with the court staff. Here this year we processed this many cases, this much in fines. These are the types of cases that we processed. And then there'd be usually a qualitative portion of that presentation. I'm really seeing street racing is really becoming a bad issue this year. You might want to think about these kinds of things. And then the inverse then ended up being true, because then the council members say, that's very helpful, we'll take that into consideration. Also, we're hearing from our residents that, I got to pick the most benign thing I can think of. Dogs off leash is a problem, and we would like to see the court work with us as we attempt to, address this issue. And so there's this opportunity for back and forth. It really is the same everywhere I've ever been. And I do think maybe that's a good starting point. We could test drive that for a while, and if council wanted to adjust it, we certainly could, but that would be our recommendation.
So I am conscious it's 6:29. I don't want to cut off conversation, but if there is general consensus on this approach, then we can probably agree to that and move forward. If there isn't, and people would like to have more discussion, we can schedule more discussion at a later time.
I'd like to suggest quarterly rather than semi-annually. That's my.
I was going to say maybe quarterly, some sort of a report on metrics. Just, I'm looking at Ariana. We do that now, but it's mostly just the number of cases, right? I mean, like, how long does it take, so that we could see some trends?
I think it sounds like we need to discuss it more.
Okay.
Yeah, if there are any trends, like it's taking longer to clear cases, or we have an increase, or, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think we are going to need to discuss it more, because I disagree with Councilor McGuire and Councilor Fisher. So
Okay.
that says we need to do
So
more.
that's fair, and we will, was there anything else in your presentation? Okay. So I think we can come back to that a little bit later in our meeting. You don't
need to,
have to stay for that. But thank you so much for being here tonight and for this presentation and for the leaps and bounds that you've made in the short time that you've been with us. So we really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, and with that, it is 6:31, and I will call to order the regular meeting of the City Council. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Heller,
Here.
Counselor Eber,
Here.
Counselor Holen?
Here.
Counselor McGuire?
Here.
Counselor Robinson?
Here.
Counselor Fisher?
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Next up is a presentation from Tischler Bice, Director Workman.
As soon as it responds to the pounding. It's okay. There we go.
It's not fair to have that picture up on the screen,
I'll advance it.
although it's going to feel like that here this week.
There
Awesome.
we go.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. I'm very excited this evening to introduce Mr. Carson Bice from Tischler Bice. This is the group that we've been under contract with here now for a couple weeks. And the second reading of the supplemental appropriation is this evening. But Mr. Bice and his group are well respected throughout the country. They do these types of nexus studies all over the place, including many local jurisdictions here in Colorado. And in an effort to kind of put a face with a name and have him introduce himself and kind of what they do and how they do it and all that kind of stuff. We wanted to bring him in. Sounds like he was already in Colorado working with some other clients. And so at this point, he does have a short PowerPoint presentation, but I'll turn it over to Mr. Bice.
Great, thank you.
Paul. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm Carson Bice with Tischler Bice. First slide there. I just have a short presentation to introduce ourselves, and I understand you guys may have some questions about the process, and we're happy to talk to you about that. And as Paul said, it is early days. This is our first contact with the city, so we're just getting started, and we don't know what we're going to find yet, and we don't know what we're going to recommend. But a little bit about us. We're based in Bethesda, Maryland, and Boise, Idaho, and we have a unique focus on cost of growth issues, specifically fiscal and economic impact analysis and infrastructure financing mechanisms, specifically impact fees and land dedication, fee in lieu type studies. We also do capital improvement programming, revenue enhancement strategies, and develop customized software. And as you can see here, we have a substantial amount of Colorado experience. In fact, we are just completing similar studies for parks and school-related land dedication studies in Arapahoe County, Adams County, and El Paso County as we speak, and that's one of the reasons I'm out here on this trip. In terms of who you'll see for this assignment, myself, I'll be the principal in charge. Colin McElwaney, who is our Western Region Manager, who manages our Boise office, will be the project manager. He does a lot of Colorado work, as do I. And then Julie Herlands, who's our Vice President, will be in charge of quality control. And then in terms of the process, one of the things we're going to have to do in the beginning is look at the current policy that the village or the city has, compare that to some changes that we've seen in national case laws in regards to land dedication. Then we move into the demographic analysis with parks. We look at land values. We also look at the demographics of the community in terms of the number of persons per housing unit. We'll look at levels of service from lots of different perspectives. We'll also evaluate whether it makes sense for the city to continue with its current process of a land dedication or a payment of a fee in lieu, or if it makes sense to do an impact fee approach. And we have no preconceived notions as we start this about what's in the best interest of Cherry Creek Village, but we're certainly going to explore both of those avenues. Also look at, or once we've gotten some recommendations, we'll do some comparative analysis in terms of how your existing policies compare to the recommendations that are coming out, and what does that mean for different developments and different hypothetical situations. And then we'll prepare based on feedback from council, perhaps the Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Commission. We'll take that feedback into consideration as we formulate our recommended strategies, standards, and methodologies. And then obviously there's the public realm where we do the outreach to the different bodies of the city, as well as if you want, we can also do some stakeholder outreach to other outside the city stakeholders, and we do that quite a bit with our infrastructure financing studies. Next slide.
That would be it.
That's it, okay.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
That is a
Well,
short
one thing I did
presentation.
want to mention is I mean, this will probably take about a 3 to 4 month process. It'll probably take us about 2.5 months to do our due diligence and do all the number crunching. And then the last month, the month and a half is more about, here's what we found. Let's solicit feedback from interested parties.
So thank you so much for being here tonight, and the timing could not be better. I know, that we have retained your services specifically as it relates to our subdivision process and the land dedication or fee in lieu. But even as we're speaking, the Colorado legislature is considering several land use preemption bills that would have just an inconceivable effect on Cherry Hills Village, namely one that would require us to rezone the entire city and set the maximum lot size at 2,000 square feet. Then another one on top of that would allow people to split lots of 2,000 square feet into two 1,000 square foot lots. And then they can build ADUs. So effectively, we have houses every 500 square feet. And I was writing an article for our city newsletter for our R1 zoned lots, which is currently a minimum of 2.5 acres. That would equate to 218 houses on what is currently one lot. The only potential, I mean, there's no saving grace in any of these bills, but one thing it does allow, it doesn't allow much, but it does allow cities to charge impact fees.
Right.
And I don't know how on earth we calculate what the impact of going from one house to potentially 218 houses is.
Is that a question?
But, well, I don't, I mean, I
have some
don't-
thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
So, from my perspective, you're almost always better with an impact fee approach if it makes sense for your jurisdiction, because a lot of the park land dedication or fee in lieu standards or policies we see are largely based on the value of the land, right? And we're working in Prince George's County, Maryland, which is a suburb right outside of Washington, D.C., near our Bethesda office, where it's basically, when you look at a high-density project, you're actually getting less than you should be because it's based on the value of the land versus the amount of people that's going to be on that 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 acres, right? And impact fees are based on, usually for parks, it's based on the number of persons. It has nothing to do with value, except when you determine what's our level of service in terms of the number of park acres per person or the amount of amenities per person. And then the value comes in terms of, well, what does it cost us to buy an acre of land? What does it cost us on average to build, ball fields or tennis courts or whatever it is that you're going to do for amenities? So, those are the kind of things we're going to be looking at, right? And we'll show hypothetical examples like we're doing in Prince George's, where it shows them that they're giving up so much revenue under one approach versus another approach.
And I think, so this project is obviously specific to Parkland because that's really the only
Right.
fee we even charge, but I presume there is the possibility of road impact fees, all of those things. Are those all separate studies and separate?
Yes, and if all of that were to take place hypothetically, you could see a huge increase in population potentially, right?
Yes.
And so that begs the question of whether your existing infrastructure for police and other facilities for roads, and I think the Metro Fire District provides fire here. So
Yeah,
that's
they
not
do.
one of your purviews. But yeah, so yeah, you may need to build additional infrastructure, or you could make the argument that perhaps you've oversized certain things and new growth buys into it. So for instance, the idea here is similar to like a wastewater treatment plant. If you've sized it to 10 million gallons a day and you're currently at 6 million gallons, new growth buys into that excess capacity. You can make that same argument with the public safety center or general government space, that we've oversized certain things for an influx of folks, and we're going to recoup a fair share. So all those are things that you would get
Okay.
into with an impact fee study.
Okay. At some future, a separate,
Exactly.
those would all be separate impact fees. Okay,
Exactly.
great, thank you. Other questions or comments or? No, well, thank you. I'm so glad that it worked out that you were here in
Yeah, we
town
look
and we
forward to
could meet
working
you
with
and,
and sharing our findings.
yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for stopping in, appreciate that.
Next up is audience participation. They have to put it up. I think, I don't know if there's anyone here who has not participated in audience participation before, but you have 5 minutes. When you come to the podium, you state your name and address for the record. We direct all comments to the city council. It's a public comment period and not a dialogue, so we will listen intently but not respond. If you have questions, those can be directed to our staff at a later time. And we just ask that everyone in the audience remain orderly. Thank you. And signed up to speak is Ms. Jean Greenberg.
Hello. I spoke last time when you.
Sorry, state your name and address again,
Oh, I'm
please.
sorry. Jean Greenberg. I live at 1792 Crestridge Drive in Greenwood Acres across the street. What I just wanted to say, I know you all are aware of the publicity lately that has been presented regarding the traffic light at Bellevue and Franklin. And I wanted to say, I just urge you to please consider it, because it really is getting difficult to get out onto Bellevue. I don't care what direction you're going in. People who are going east are very gracious about letting you out, except if you're going west, you can't see the traffic coming from the east, and it's dangerous. It's really dangerous. When I moved in almost 40 years ago, it wasn't a problem. You couldn't even hear the traffic on Bellevue. And also, Bellevue was a 2-lane highway east of University. It's all 4 lanes, it's crowded, it's busy, and obviously some people have, taken their life in their hands and lost it. So I do urge you all to think seriously about the traffic light and its need at this point in time. I know a lot of people were opposed and didn't like the idea. Like tonight, fortunately, I made a mistake, and we only have 3 exits out of Greenwood Village, or out of Green Acres, and that's it. 2 of them are on to Bellevue and one's on to University. The one on to University is a little easier if you want to go south, because there's a merge lane, so that if somebody's very gracious going north to let you through, you can always sit in the merge lane if there's traffic going south. That's another alternative, but it's not good enough. It really isn't. We really need a traffic light. The times when a lot of people are going out is during work hours, and then it's really very busy. If you're going out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, sometimes it's not a problem. The other issue people were concerned about were their children playing in the streets, people walking their dogs, etc. That's been going on for years. We all are very careful and know. And you can see people, except me, because I walk at 5 o'clock in the morning, which makes no sense. But it's still, it shouldn't be an issue. The issue is trying to get onto Bellevue at this point in time. So I hope you all will really seriously consider the traffic light. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Greenberg is the only person signed up to speak, but is there anyone else who would like to speak? No? Okay, thank you. Then we will move on to reports from members of city boards and commissions. I don't see anyone here. We'll move on to the consent agenda.
Any removals? Hearing none, I move approval of consent agenda items 7A, B, C, D, and E.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Moving on to unfinished business. The first item is the continuation of the public hearing for Resolution 6, Series 2026, approving a minor subdivision to create 2 lots from 1 lot at 1 Cherry Hills Park Drive. And I will turn that over to Director Workman.
Good evening once again, Madam Mayor and members of council. As was noted in your packet for this evening, at the request of the applicant, they are requesting another continuance of this application. It was originally continued on February 17th to tonight. They are requesting a continuance to the May 5th hearing in order to continue to work through some existing AC units and a wall that's located on the subject property. The recommended motion for the continuance is in your packet as well as on the slide in front of you. Staff's available for any questions you may have.
Are there any questions? If not,
I move to continue Resolution 6, Series 2026, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Cherry Hills Village to the May 5, 2026 City Council meeting.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That also passes unanimously. Just as a housekeeping note, I can't see Doug anymore. There he is, okay, thank you.
I am here.
Yes, I hear you, if you were raising your hand or what, I wouldn't be able to see that, so, thank you. Next up is the Council Bill 2, Series 2026, amending the 2026 budget by approving a supplemental appropriation for a Nexus study. And this is on second and final reading, also Director Workman.
The last time you all get to hear from me this evening. As was just noted, the next item on your agenda this evening is a second reading for the supplemental appropriation for the Nexus study. Just very briefly, a couple weeks ago, March 3rd of this year, Council approved the professional services agreement between Tischler Bice and the city, as well as Council Bill 2, Series 2026, which was the first reading for a request for supplemental appropriation to the 26 budget in the amount just over $40,000, and the contract is structured for a not-to-exceed amount. So that is the maximum amount that would be part of the supplemental appropriation. And I will tag in Director Newman here for one brief update.
Thank you very much. I did want to point out just 2 slight changes that we have made to our supplemental appropriation council bills, and working with Mayor Pro Tem Holland, we've added some clarity, as well as working with the city attorney and her amazing help. We've added some clarity to the final whereas as it relates to Section 9.10 of our charter, and then also just for easier tracking and budget updates, I've started to add the revenue and expense so that we'll increase the revenue that we expect to get in. We have no reason to believe we wouldn't get that from building permits this year, as well as the expense. So it's easier to see where that anticipated additional revenue is coming from.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Director Newman. With that, that's okay. The challenges of hybrid meetings, right?
Yeah. Any questions?
Yeah, so that concludes our presentation. We're available for questions. There's also the motion on the screen in front of you.
All right.
Yeah, and I don't have a question per se, and I mentioned this to Director Newman before, and I don't know why I didn't think about this the last time, but when on first reading, but we're making a separate appropriation to the general fund, and the land dedication and cash payment in lieu thereof, and section 17-3-30, is all associated with parks and open space. The land goes to parks and open space. The fee in lieu of that would only go for parks and open space. So I guess my question is why aren't we making a change to the Parks and Rec, or the Parks Fund, the Parks fee, the Parks Fund, and it could be done with the general fund, but then if it was, then it would seem to me that it would be, a transfer, interfund transfer that would come later on. So it doesn't really matter how it's done, but I think that's an important point to note, that this appropriation is being done on behalf of, and completely on behalf of parks and open space.
And I'll defer to staff on any, rationale, but I think there's a very good argument that this has a more general benefit to the city as well, so that it's appropriate in a general fund as well. I'll turn it over.
You do, then that would suggest then that 17-3-30 needs to be substantially rewritten because it doesn't provide anything with regard to other than parks and open space.
Well, perhaps the exercise of, maybe not the specific outcome of this project, but the exercise of determining impact fees may be useful on a broader scale. But also, to your point, we can make the appropriation out of the general fund if we have the funds available there. And we can always do an interfund transfer at some point in the year if we.
Yeah, and that's what I
Feel that's
indicated. And in
necessary.
fact, if it is, I mean, it might be 50-50 or 60-40 or 7. I mean, so to your point then, if it is from that perspective, it would be allocated appropriately.
That's frankly above my pay grade to make some of those decisions. I mean, but from a legal perspective, I think it'll be fine.
Sure. Anyway, just a point that I wanted
Yeah,
to make.
it's an interesting point. Okay. If there's no other questions? A motion, anyone?
I move to approve on second and final reading Council Bill 2, Series 2026, a bill for an ordinance of the City of Cherry Hills Village amending the 2026 budget by approving a supplemental appropriation for the Nexus study.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Heller?
Yes.
Counselor Eber?
Aye.
Counselor Holen?
Aye.
Counselor McGuire?
Aye.
Counselor Robinson?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
That passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to Resolution 8, Series 2026, accepting a donation from the Cherry Hills Village Police Foundation on behalf of the Cherry Hills Village Police Department. I'll turn it over to the commander.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. Before you is a resolution to once again accept a generous donation from the Cherry Hills Village Police Foundation. This donation would be in the amount of $46,000, which we have appropriated to use for the purchase of a Polaris Ranger UTV-style vehicle, which would help allow officers to get greater access under the trail system. This is far better than any resource we have at this point. It's fully enclosed, it's climate controlled, so it'll allow us the ability to be out there and patrolling the trails a lot more frequently in inclement weather conditions. Additionally, 16,000 of that will be used towards wellness initiatives for all the employees of the police department. And finally, if you remember, a couple months ago, one of our officers was recognized for performing CPR and saving the life of Mr. Maroney. Following that, Mr. Maroney made a $10,000 donation to the Police Foundation, which we feel appropriate to use towards the purchase of AED devices that we will put in all of our patrol vehicles.
Thank you. That comes full circle. My goodness, I'm so sorry. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for providing the additional detail. I kept reading in the memo, for specific police equipment, and my only question was going to be, do we know what the specific equipment is? And so, yes, we do. Is there any other questions or comments? Yes.
Just a similar question and no issue whatsoever. I think it's all great. But what are the wellness initiatives?
So we've actually partnered with a wellness app that has a lot of resources for the officers. And also you can see, it's called the Whoop. Never heard of it before recently, but it's a biometric measuring tool that you wear it and it measures your heart rate. It can detect things like AFib. It'll do an ECG scan for you. So those are the wellness initiatives, along with, like I said, an app that has a lot of different resources available to the officers on there.
Thank you, Commander.
Great, thank you. If no other questions, I would
I
entertain.
didn't-
Oh, hi, Doug. Yep.
Well, sorry. I had a question too. Is that an ATV that you were describing? Is that the first purchase?
Yes, so it's a Polaris Ranger. It's a four-door Polaris Ranger.
All right. All right, if no other questions, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve Resolution 8, Series 2026, accepting a donation from the Cherry Hills Village Police Foundation on behalf of the Cherry Hills Village Police Department.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. And for the companion to that, we'll move on to Council Bill 3, Series 2026, amending the 2026 budget by approving a supplemental appropriation for the purchase of the said specific police equipment and officer wellness initiatives on first reading. Director Newman.
And that is correct. Similar, these were funds that we had not anticipated coming into the 2026 budget. We would like to have you approve our supplemental appropriation to bring in both the revenue on the police donation side and the expense on the police police expenditure line.
Thank you. Any questions? Then I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve on first reading Council Bill 3, Series 2026, a bill for an ordinance of the City of Cherry Hills Village, amending the 2026 budget by approving a supplemental appropriation for the purchase of specific police equipment and officer wellness initiatives.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Heller?
Yes.
Counselor Eber?
Aye.
Counselor Holen?
Aye.
Counselor McGuire?
Aye.
Counselor Robinson?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Aye.
That passes unanimously. We will move on to the next item of business, which is discussion about board and commission member terms, and I'll turn it over to Clerk Gillespie.
Bear with me one moment, please. What I want either. We'll just do this. Okay, good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. We have several board and commission member terms that are ending in May. In addition, we've had a couple of resignations, and we have a commissioner who would like to switch commissions. So the table that you see on your screen is sort of a conglomeration of the information in your packet. The terms that are ending, who wants to be reappointed, who doesn't, people who have resigned, and the one who wants to switch. Just as a reminder, the PTRC is the only commission that the code requires has representation from all districts if possible. The commission district representation in May after the terms end and people who don't want to be reappointed go off the commission is shown on your screen. So we'll have District 3 and 5 vacant, pending reappointment. The art commissioner who wants to switch is in District 3, just a point of interest there. We do also have 2 past applications, one that's interested in P&Z and PTRC. That applicant is in District 4, and another who is just interested in P&Z.
Okay.
What we are seeking tonight from council is for 2 council members to review applications, conduct interviews, and make recommendations for appointments for the vacancies that we're going to have on these commissions. And potentially, depending on how council wants to treat the commissioner switching commissions, direction on that, whether that gets folded into the interviews, whether council just wants to make that change without an interview, open to any discussion on that.
Okay. So as you all know, we have this process. We've gone through it before. We do have openings, so we will need to, regardless of how many and which ones, et cetera, we will need to publish and request applications. So we'll be doing that. Do I have any volunteers? What is the expected time frame for the interviews?
We're looking at the week of May 4th for interviews.
Okay, so early May.
Can I ask a couple of questions, because I was confused by this? So we have some people who are resigning, meaning that there are vacancies that need to be filled. And then in this box, these are people whose terms are up and they want to stay on, so we just need to approve that? Or how does the box relate to everything else?
Yeah, sorry. I was trying to conglomerate a lot of data, but it is still a little confusing. So if there's a yes or no under this column, that means that their term is ending the second Tuesday of May. And they're resigned. It's not they desire reappointment. They've resigned. And then this one's kind of the outlier. So as far as the three that do want to be reappointed, we were going to have council discuss that at a later time. Right now, we're just looking for those two council members to review applications, conduct interviews, and looking for some direction on the switch of commissioner.
So there's, how many openings are there? There's Arts Commission and P&Z,
There's
PTRC, and, I'm sorry, I don't know why I can't read this.
There's two vacant PTRC commissions already, and then there's a third one that does not wish to be reappointed. So there's 3 openings there.
Okay.
Well, and just to clarify, for PTRC, we have, if this person gets reappointed, we'll need to appoint one more person. We do have 2 in District 1 at the moment. So that does complicate things.
Okay, so the 2 vacancies was already factoring in Laurel O'Brien, who not wishing to be reappointed. Got it. I was looking at the next page that has
Right.
this.
Yeah, since we've doubled up on District 1.
Yeah.
Right.
And then on the Arts Commission, we have one person who does not want to, and Dave has done yeoman's work for a number of years. I'm sad to see him go, but I totally understand. So there's at least one position open there, and if we, when we discuss the next item, the request for Kate Darch to move to PTRC, there's potentially a second opening on the Arts Commission as well.
And Anne Marie resigning. So
Yes, sorry, or 3.
So 3. Yeah.
On the Art Commission, potentially.
No, he with Ann Columbus and Warren. No, he was on PTRC for a long time, and then came back onto Art Commission after the founding. But he's been on there for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, looking at your first weeks in May, is there anybody who would like to be, we need 2 council members to conduct the interviews, and they will most likely be for PTRC and Art Commission vacancies. Counselor Eber? And anyone else? Counselor Heller, thank you. I think,
We could switch off Doug's camera and then put him
yeah,
back on
I'm
and say,
pretty
hey,
sure I
thank you
saw
very much.
he raised both hands at the same time. He wants to be both interviewers.
He might be frozen.
Okay, so Counselor Heller and Counselor Eber will conduct those interviews. And then in terms of the request to switch from the Art Commission to the PTRC, that is representing a district that is currently would not be represented. So I think it's a good fit from that perspective. But do you think we should just make that appointment, or should we include that as part of the interview process?
I think it's good. I'd be comfortable, particularly since it's filling a position that, a district that doesn't have one and that should have one. I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
I'd rather see if we get any applicants, and if we don't, then make it automatic.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know why it would be any different, just because she's on Art Commission now,
Yeah,
not following our
that's-
set process.
I think that's fair.
That's fair.
Or
Okay.
maybe even modify that, maybe no others from District 3, if that's what we're trying to fill.
Well, and that is the way PTRC works. If you have applicants, I mean, presumably qualified applicants from the district, then it needs to go to them. Okay.
So she may very well be the only one, in which case.
Yeah, okay.
Why
guess-
do we
I
have
guess
two
I guess-
representatives from District 1?
Because we did not have any applicants from the other districts at the time when we needed to fill a position.
Right, so if we don't have applicants from each district, then we fill it to
Fill it,
the
right.
size.
And I guess I'd say, to Counselor Heller's comment, I mean, it makes perfect sense what you're saying, but on the other hand, we interview our volunteers to serve on these commissions, and we vet them, and we find them whether they're acceptable or not. And then if they are, we put them on. That was the case that we found with Kate Darch. Why wouldn't we just put her on then if that's what you wanted to do? I mean, because what we're saying then at that point in time is if for some reason your interview process, you like somebody better, we've already got somebody on, serving on one of our commissions that satisfies the council's view about the appropriateness of this volunteer.
But I would, because if there are other people that want to serve in that role, they ought to have a chance to compete for it too.
Yeah, that's my only point, Earl.
I mean, I'm not saying she's not qualified, I'm just saying, apparently the last time we asked, there wasn't, but maybe there's someone there who said, well, if I had known that there was a vacancy there, I would have applied.
Okay.
I mean, I just think it's taking an extra step.
Yeah, I think you both have very solid points.
I was gonna say, I don't feel super strong
Yeah.
about it
Yeah.
either. It's just that-
I think the only, and this is workable, certainly, the only implication is that when you're conducting the interviews, if we were just to make the appointment now, then you would know which positions are open when you conduct your interviews in May. If we defer it until May and we appoint,
There may be one more spot.
there may be one more spot open on the art commission, but I think that's doable to just keep that in mind as you're interviewing, and it's workable, so, okay.
But Mayor, just to be clear, what I was proposing is if there aren't any others, I think we can say in District 3, then just go ahead and appoint.
Yes, I think that's fair too. And so, great, I think if we would, and communicate, obviously, to Ms. Darch that we encourage her to apply for PTRC if she's interested in doing that, but that this is our process. Thank you. Okay, moving on to reports. Man, there's a lot going on. I think you all just heard the gist of what my weeks are. These bills are gonna pass, and I just don't know that there's gonna be much that we can do about it in this session, and we're just gonna have to hang our hat on future opportunities, some of the ones we discussed at the retreat, or new leadership perhaps taking a different direction or something. But those two bills, they're one that the maximum lot size is 2,000 square feet, and then a separate one that lets you subdivide any lot that's 2,000 square feet or greater, with very little ability to steer that in any direction, to place any requirements or conditions, very little. You also probably know that the Home Act.
Hey, Mayor, one question on that one, and maybe I should have read it and I didn't catch
No.
it. Is that focused just on the Front Range, or is that statewide?
Oh, no, it's the same cities with in a metropolitan district with population of some random arbitrarily selected number, yeah.
I think it's
all that BS.
1,000, right? I think
What?
1,000.
Yeah, which is just, and I don't think I don't remember seeing that argument made in the current lawsuit, but, where they get those population numbers from are completely arbitrary. And so it feels like that is an opportunity, an additional avenue of challenge. I know, what was that? Okay. Oh, okay, sorry, wow, okay. There was just a very loud buzzing, yeah. That was Earl, okay. There, and So I am writing the article for the April crier. I submitted that today, and I did ask a couple of staff members and obviously our liaison to review it. It does focus on housing legislation, takes a pretty aggressive stance, but basically
I think it's worthy of a special edition. Of the Crier.
there are a few things that I will tone down a little at the suggestion of, so I appreciated that feedback. But basically, the point is that, we're making the communicating to our residents that we are a home rule municipality and we will continue to operate as a home rule municipality. And that means enforcing our laws and ordinances. So that is my report. It's currently spring break for Cherry Creek School District, so, and happy St. Patrick's Day. And then we'll start down here with Councilor Heller.
Just one quick report. I did attend the annual noise conference. It was super helpful relative to networking and establishing nice baseline. It'd be nice if the timing of sitting on the noise committee would be coincide with this. But one thing I raised with Chris is, and this is for future, maybe even councils, but there's a lot of discussion about advanced air mobility and vertiports. And the FAA is already planning for this, as are airports around the country, possibly in the state. And this is where unmanned drones, basically aerial devices, will be more prevalent, taking off and landing in our communities to airports, contemplated for cargo and people. And the interesting...
You better bet we're going to be right at the top of that list,
yeah,
right?
So it sounds a little bit like the Jetsons or something, but in any event, planning has started, as have land dedications and the like at airports, so it feels real. It just feels a little bit farther out there. The way it was conveyed is that the FAA retains jurisdiction over the airspace and the vehicles, but it is specifically crafted such that local jurisdictions control the facilities. And the recommendation from several law firms and others was eventually that every municipality pass an ordinance so that you do have a say in where vertiports are built or not in your jurisdiction. Wow. So it sounds out there, but again, that was...
Well, and I'm not kidding that I think of any municipality that's likely to be on the bleeding edge of that, I would put ours right up there.
I have no doubt that there are some communities that will likely contemplate and strategize about public facilities for these kinds of things in an effort to centralize so that this traffic isn't going everywhere. But as we've seen with a lot of our recreational facilities and private helicopter facilities, we privatize a lot of those here in Cherry Hills Village. So it would not surprise me if we may not have a huge need to set out a series of ordinances related to public vertiports. However, at some point, and this is still years off, but still at some point, we likely need to come up with some ordinances related to private vertiports.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the big warning was don't get caught with an application and not have an ordinance whenever this becomes real. That
Yeah.
was the big...
I mean, I guess to that same point, that's my concern about the private. I don't even know that there'd be an application, right? If we don't have an ordinance, what I don't want is somebody's drone taxi, landing in the middle of the street and we're completely caught off guard. And so I think that you're absolutely right, that it's probably more about private and where, and that it's not appropriate for public facility. You can't land in parks and you can't, whatever. So anyway, that's interesting. Councilor Eber.
Thank you, Mayor. 3 quick ones. Had a conversation following our last meeting where we talked a little bit about cell phones at the retreat and things like that. Interestingly, one of the conversations I had with somebody who lives in Cherry Creek North on the east side, kind of tucked up, kind of close to TJ, I guess, where you were coming off of there. And the comment that they gave to me was, they have horrible service, and it didn't really show up on our map as an area that was really bad, I didn't think. But I need to go back and double check. But we had a conversation, and it turns out that, they are, when I mentioned the potential for the Crown Castle work and the new poles, they were very encouraged about that area, and wanted us to know that, in essence, that area is very lacking in service and that we need to include that. So if there are other ones, obviously, that I thought I knew about, this was one that I didn't. I knew that the area where Mayor lives is a bad area, but just to the east of that also apparently has a lot of bad spots in it
Well, and it
as
depends
well.
on the carrier, too.
So the other thing is, I've been in the middle of a number of e-bike conversations in the last couple of weeks, and to a T, the adults hate them, and the kids love them. And I had a long exchange with a couple of kids that I ended up talking to, and they were very professional about it. I was very, they were very adult-like, I guess I would say, not professional, but they were very stern about the fact that they understood that they had Class 2 e-bikes, and I think I made an email to city manager and also I think to police chief, but the bottom line is that lots of young people are riding Class 2 e-bikes. They now, at least of this group, which was a group of 6 on one time when I talked to them, and another group of 4 when I spoke to them, they understand that they are only allowed to ride on the roads. In fact, they have to ride on the roads, that they cannot ride on trails of any kind. But there are a number of places where they have made marks along the Highline Canal Trail, either doing donuts or just basically burning tire skid depth into that. But I wanted everybody to know that also they're doing it on the dirt roads of my neighborhood at least, whether they're doing it on other dirt roads in the village. But I wanted to just mention it so that, Commander, if you in our neighborhood at least, there are probably 5 or 6 different places where I noticed we've got kind of these little divot burn marks where these guys are just accelerating their wheels and kicking out a hole in the pavement. I don't know if that's defacing public property or anything, but it is going on.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway, that saga continues. The other thing that I've had a number of conversations about is general speeds within the village. And to a T, everybody that I talk to thinks that in general the speeds in the village are still too fast, and that they would like to see all of us and our neighbors be the ones responsible for lowering our own speeds that we drive. So while the tickets that we heard earlier tonight in work session may be going predominantly to non-residents, I think the message that I have is there's plenty of us that are residents that unfortunately are also driving too fast. And so I ask our residents to please be careful and drive like anybody could jump out in front of your car at any moment. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Holland.
No report, just wish everybody a happy St. Patrick's Day, and to wish the mighty Virginia Cavaliers, the number 3 seed in the Midwest, who play on Friday, the best of luck.
Counselor McGuire.
I have 2 things. One, I'd like to ask, as I mentioned last week, I'm gone. On the 7th which is when we were going to have the next discussion about about Quincy Farm. And I would like to ask that we postpone those discussions for a month. I guess there are some agenda issues that make that helpful, if I'm correct, Mr. City Manager. And so we would move both the discussion from April 7th to May 5th, I believe, and then the subsequent, which was going to be the subsequent presentation, which was going to be May 5th, we'd move to the beginning of June. Do I have that right?
Yes, you brought this up with me earlier, and we've been looking into this. The June, we still need to confirm with the Land Preserve about their availability.
Okay.
But we do know the Land Preserve is available May 5th because that's currently the scheduled night for the Part 3. So we could basically substitute that out. Just to, when Councilwoman McGuire brought this up, I did want to just reflect on our conversation for council's benefit. You know, when we came up with the schedule, I will just tell you, big picture, it was a fairly aggressive schedule, and this was staff's attempt to respond to council to let you know, we hear you. We wanted this to move along quickly and really have some resolution early this year. What we didn't know when we came up with the schedule are some other things that have come up since. Specifically, on May 19th, is it May 19th? May 19th? Yes, May 19th, we are going to have the warrant study presentation. We could theoretically move this back 2 weeks. I'm going to just desperately request that we not move it back 2 weeks. Having both Quincy Farm and the warrant study on the same night will, in my opinion, hurt both conversations. Conversely, or additionally, we also have the subdivision variance process that we really weren't aware of at the time that may generate some interesting conversation that may take a while. That's also scheduled for the April 7th one currently. So we're already sort of doubled up on April 7th. So from a scheduling perspective, there are certainly benefits to the proposal that Councilwoman McGuire is proposing.
I think we've reached out to everybody, and nobody had a problem with it, but if anybody does, would you mind? And just to be...
I got a problem.
But just to be clear, I promise to do everything in my power, whatever amount that might be, to make sure we do get a decision. I realize people don't want to keep pushing this out. And so I am suggesting that we extend it another 30 days, but I am going to push to get decisions made by then also. So for what that's worth. Go ahead, Earl.
I don't have a problem in terms of pushing that the April 7th meeting, but I do have a problem conceivably on the second meeting on June 2nd, because I may not be here.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying that I'm gonna be here.
Understood.
So we gotta figure out a way to get around that.
I do think, and Emily, you can chime in here, I do think that there was initial conversations with the Land Preserve, and I think we needed to circle back to confirm, but they may have problems with the second as well.
Right.
So I hesitate to lock it in right this minute. Let us just circle back on that a little bit further to confirm. But I would say of the 2 dates, we were already looking at June 16th anyway, because of the Land Preserve also. So it would be multiple reasons to then possibly look at that June 16th.
And that would work for me. And again, and I appreciate, Susan, your comments, because I do think it's important that we're driving and going, there would be a decision on June 16th come hell or high water.
Yeah, I think I appreciate Councilor McGuire's reaching out. I think this is a big decision. And I think that trying to do it, having everyone participate is very important to me, because this will have, whatever the decision is, one way or another, will have very long-lasting impacts. And I think, where there's only 6 council members and 1 mayor to begin with, and I think we really need everyone there. So to the extent that we can push it back, but still get to a resolution, I really feel very strongly that this year is a hard deadline. We have potentially 4 new council members in January, potentially. And we just cannot afford to keep starting back at square one.
Agreed.
So I really feel like we have to make progress this year. And so, but other than, beyond that, I would really like to schedule around people's schedules as much as possible so that we can have the fullest, most robust discussion. So it sounds like everybody's good with that. Yep. Doug, you over there? Yep. Okay.
Great, and thank you to everybody. I'm sorry to do that, but I appreciate it. Secondly, I know Director Workman said that that was the last we were going to hear from him tonight, but we had a meeting today talking about the Kent's doing some work on the building where their daycare for their teachers' children is, and it's an administrative procedure. And I just wanted to ask him when we come around to him that he, in fact, still speak and explain, just let everybody know, just kind of a brief overview, why it's an administrative procedure, why it's not going to PTRC and to City Council, and just big picture. You don't need to get down in the detail, but I think there's some concern that some neighbors may be upset. It seems like it shouldn't be, but I just want people to be aware of it, so.
On my list.
All right.
Okay,
Counselor
that's all I have.
Robinson.
Yes, just one thing, we have a full day off-site on the Region 9 Opioid Abatement Council coming up in early April, where we're going to be really planning how we're going to be spending, over $10 million over the next couple of years. So any thoughts around how we could spend this money? Really, it's anything really to do with substance abuse, and trying to minimize that, whether it's prevention, whether it's facilities, care, other things. If anyone has any thoughts, please email me or let me know. Otherwise, I'll report back later on any decisions that we make.
Great. Thank you. Counselor Fisher.
Thank you. I don't have a report, but I have a quick question for Director Goldie. In the packet, this is my neighborhood, and so that's full disclosure. On page 21, the chip seal thing, which I have no problem with, the street is referred to as East Charlevoix, but the street sign just says Charlevoix. And I looked on our city maps, and they all say Charlevoix, but Google says East Charlevoix. So what do we do about that? Like, do you ever?
What do you want to do with that?
I don't know. I mean,
No, we've had that issue before. We did
don't
this.
know.
We had the same issue just 2 weeks ago in Farms East, and luckily my staff had already noticed it. And so when I got a call from one of our past mayors that lives in that neighborhood, we were able to switch the signs out within a week. But let me go to the county records and let's put whatever it is there, the official record, on the signs.
sounds good. Thanks.
And we'll make sure that happens.
All right, before we move on to staff, I think Counselor Eber had a part two.
Sorry, I forgot
That's
to
right.
mention that Congressman Crow on early March it sent us all an email to our mailboxes, and I went ahead and attended kind of a seminar or a meeting that they had for government officials and within his district. And what it was is there were probably about 10 people there from the range of Aurora all the way over to Littleton. There was somebody there from Sheridan. And what they did is they really kind of just went through the different people in their office, and they spoke about the different services that they can talk and help with constituent services. And probably the biggest takeaway for a lot of us is that if you're way behind and need a passport quick, they are more than happy to help expedite passports. And so I mentioned that. And I think it was a pretty good discussion. I mean, like I say, there were a number of different people there. And I attended, and I thought it went pretty well in terms of just understanding a little bit more about the office and kind of the services that they offer. The second thing is, I don't know how this happened, but apparently I was recommended by Colorado Municipal League and was appointed to the NLC's Legal Advisory Committee. So I'm now a part of that. And they haven't asked me to do anything yet, but apparently it says here, it's a standing advisory body that has responsibility for evaluating requests for assistance and making recommendations to the NLC Executive Director about cases that NLC should initiate or seek to participate in by filing action, intervening as party, filing on or signing onto an amicus brief. So I'll keep you posted what I have to do, but
So, and NLC is National League of Cities. We're not members, are we? Oh, okay.
He's a local public elected official.
I have.
Okay.
Now, I will say, it will not surprise me if they utilize this opportunity and invite Councilman Eber to come to the national conference.
It was just this week, I think.
No, I know, but
there
I'm just
too
saying,
here.
and for future references, they will likely invite you, and they may even help subsidize your cost in an effort so that you will come back and proselytize about how great it is so that
Yeah.
we become members and start sending our own people to the conference. Just heads up, that's how they roll.
I'm
There
not
is-
sure if this
there-
is a good thing or a bad thing, but I got this email completely out of the blue. And so,
Yeah,
We have won the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes.
yeah. So, at any rate,
Well, yeah, congratulations. And so before we move on to the city manager and staff reports, I had made a note on my agenda and totally skipped over it about the court communication.
Yes, that was my first
discussion.
thing is, do you want
Yeah,
to circle back to that?
We want to circle back to that and try to bring some resolve to that. So I think where we left it was that I think there was some agreement around a presentation like the one that Judge Elman did tonight, and a couple of frequencies had been thrown out as possibilities. And I know Counselor Holen, you suggested that maybe you have a different thought, so let's pick up there.
Yeah, I thought once a quarter is just too much. I mean, the point is that I think it's important that council pays more attention than we did in the past. But I think once a quarter is overkill. What we're looking for, and I noticed this when we were talking about the collections thing, and we had to make specific mention that, hey, we got to make sure that they do it in the appropriate manner. I view that as for everything that we do, whether it's our street contractors, whoever it is, that there's an understanding that the character of Cherry Hills Village is always communicated to whoever our contractors are, whether it be collection agency, whether it be chip seal guys, no matter what it is. And that's what we're looking for. We're hiring a judge, and I think we all feel really, really good about Judge Elman, who is going to be very, very competent. And the question then is, okay, is the court running consistent with what our views about the character of Cherry Hills Village is? And I just don't feel like we need to be digging in so deep on once a quarter to make that determination. I mean, I guess that's where I'm coming, because the more council meets, the more they tend to dig in, and I think that's one area where we don't want to be digging in too much. What we want to do is we just want to ensure that it's being done in a very professional, competent manner, consistent with the values of Cherry Hills Village. That's my view, and I view that twice a year probably, quite frankly, I think you could do that once a year, but I think twice a year is probably as much. But that's just my opinion, I just want to share that.
Just a quick data point for this conversation, just in case council needs this information about the variable. Every time he comes here, it's a cost,
I was about to say that too. There's
hourly cost.
his contract includes court, but it doesn't,
Correct.
we pay hourly for stuff outside of that.
Absolutely right.
And what is his hourly rate?
$150?
Okay.
We'll confirm it real quick,
Yeah,
but
I'm not talking about that he needs to come and talk into the microphone in our presence. I'm talking about a written report.
oh,
You know,
Yeah.
you know.
But
which
even
again,
that would
which-
be-
which
yeah.
will involve some costs. But I'd like to say, we got a lot going on, just looking at the report he gave us today. There's a fair amount of stuff in there, and it may be that maybe we don't need it every quarter 3 years from now. But I think right now, with all the stuff that's going on, I think 6 months may not be quite enough. And we already are getting a report that has information
some
and
basic
numbers in it.
statistics.
How
Yeah,
often do we
right.
get that one?
We get that
Monthly.
quarterly.
quarterly.
Yeah, quarterly.
Quarterly.
But I'll just offer to you, we have already identified opportunities to enhance that report, regardless of this conversation tonight, mostly tied to, you might recall that we are investing in court software, right? And its primary benefit is it's going to help court operations operate smoothly, reduce errors, et cetera. But another benefit is reporting is going to be loads easier, and we're going to have an opportunity to add much more relevant statistics about how courts operating, similar to like a lot of the ideas that you were mentioning, Councilman Fisher. So I guess I would offer to you, let us give a first crack at enhancing that report with some additional valuable data that would help kind of tell a story about how court's going, and then you can give us feedback. You're going to see, that's
You okay?
altered. I also have a 2.5 week cold that I've been dealing with. So.
Okay, so we've got impact
I'm sorry, and
on.
I just wanted to talk about the other things that I wanted to have reports on. I mean, the basic numbers thing or whatever, here's what's going on in the court. I want to hear about issues and concerns that he has, that he's seeing, and I thought somebody gave a good example, the dogs off leash or increase or whatever. And then I think at least annually, I would like to see discussion, and I'm sure municipal judges go to an annual continuing legal education seminar where they talk about trends in the municipal court system. And I would like to have a report to the council about that, because I think that could influence how we see and evaluate things. So that's, I just wanted to add those.
Okay, so we've got, I think those are great suggestions for what he would report to us on. We've got suggestion for quarterly. I know initially, Counselor Fisher, you were on that page as well. We've got.
Can I just add to that? Because I thought, I have no problem with a quarterly written report, and they're talking about beefing up what you do now. That's not a problem. I'm talking about dragging the judge in here. I thought that's what you guys were talking about.
But
Okay,
before we
then
come
that's-
to, let's hear from everybody else. We've got maybe 6 months, maybe annually.
Mayor, may I?
Yes.
Can I just refresh council's recollection on the actual contract?
Yes.
Okay, because all the duties are spelled out in there, and so a lot of it involves actually managing the court, right? But specifically to the rate outside of court time, which is $160 per hour. That covers consulting with the city as requested to support ongoing development and administration of the court, providing counsel with annual communication about court performance, including a self-evaluation if requested, and reviewing, evaluating, and advising counsel as requested on municipal code updates to modernize the city code. You all do know we do have our work cut out for us on that last bit too. So just in terms of the overall impact, those are spelled out as his duties, not that there can't be an amendment or
So in the contract, it said annually, but that's not to say that we couldn't ask for it more.
Right, though it'll come at a cost, and obviously setting out, what you want in that report and that evaluation is all very germane. Right.
Counselor Eber, where are you?
I mean, I think where I was thinking that there would be some form of an annual evaluation and a more formalized discussion associated with that. A formal report that we talked about today. But I was also thinking on a semi-annual basis, a less formal, even if it's 1 hour, where you sort of say, what are you seeing within the village? Here's kind of what we're thinking as a council. We're trying to, we're getting a lot of comments about, horses getting spooked by dogs or whatever it is, that we want to kind of emphasize that that's important to us. If there is any, it's probably not based on ones and twos, but it's probably got to be a little bit of directive that we want you to understand, without putting our thumb on the scale, of course, that this is important. Public safety is important. Our trails safety are important to us. Not that anything's unimportant within the code. As Earl would say, if it's in the code, it should be enforced. And I think that that's true too. But, I think that I'm thinking semi-annually, but you're right, it is a busy time right now. And Susan, I think we could, for the first, next 6 months, we could do quarterly and then jump to 6 months. I don't care.
Counselor Heller, where are you?
Yeah, so kind of summarize everything I've heard. I think an annual in-person report is adequate, but quarterly written reports. And Chris, I think you said you're going to look at metrics. Susan and Earl, I like your idea of kind of a continuous improvement theme. I think that comes from professional associations, but also from our own data. Some of the metrics may not be right quarterly, and they'll be updated twice a year, but that's where my head is. Once a year, quarterly reports, update the metrics, and yes, focus on, you know, what you said, Earl, but also a continuous improvement. So, you know, where might we need to take action as a result of what we're seeing?
Yeah. Counselor Robinson, where are you?
So I think having him come annually and visit with us is adequate, and I think twice a year reporting is adequate as well. I think the court seems to be running very smoothly, and with the changes he's made, we've got a lot of things that we need to consider, and I think semi-annual reporting and an annual visit is adequate for me.
And I think I would probably be inclined to agree with Counselor Robinson. I think I just want to, you know, I want to remind everyone that I think we're being very optimistic to think that we would be able to receive information and act on that information every quarter. We don't have the capacity for that. As a council, as a staff, as a, you know, quarterly, we only have, like 20 meetings a year? Quarterly would be almost every third meeting. He would be here. I mean, I know people have said, but even presenting a written report or having a discussion at a council level about that report. So I think that I don't want to send people off doing work that we're not going to have the capacity to act on.
But didn't we leave it, Chris, I think you offered, city manager, you offered to take a look at the metrics and get back to us, right? And that'll have, some of them, again, may not be ripe for quarterly. I don't think it requires action. It's just kind of monitoring.
And they already do that report. That report is not done by the judge, so we're not.
Correct. That's what I was going to say. That's our doing.
That is a staff report, and that I think that should continue. I think having him come and having the nature of the discussion that I agree, it would be very important for him to say, wow, we've really seen an uptick in this. Maybe we should, you should look at your code and, maybe we've seen an uptick of people landing their drone taxis and, you need to have something, whatever it is. And for us to say, and we're hearing a lot about this, we need to make sure that the prosecution reflects the priorities of the community. I just don't think it's realistic to do that effectively more than once a year.
I think, though, you're thinking about a different type of report than what I'm talking about. And I am looking for something more than just the numbers that we get now, because I'm not sure I even know when I look at that what the significance of those numbers are to me as a council person. To tell me how many cases are going through, how much, but I don't know. But, and bad me for not asking, but I'm not going to ask that now. But he laid out 6 or 7 things in his report that he's working on. That I think are important. And so I would just like to know, okay, so where are you on that civic code thing? Is that in process? Is that finished? Are we going to be seeing something on? Where are you on that? I mean, I to the extent he's doing stuff like that, I don't want to wait 6 months to find out where he is on that. I think we can find that. And maybe that doesn't need to come from him. Maybe that can come from the court reporter.
Yeah, so I was going to just say.
And he just takes a look at it and says, yeah, this is fine.
Of those 6 or 7 things, staff is leading, I think, 4 of them.
At least 4, if not more. It's very much a collaborative relationship, and the majority of things on the work plan are staff-led right now. So, Ariana, the court clerk, and I can absolutely work together and beef up that report. To city manager's point, with the new software and some of the new reporting we're getting out of it and being able to customize, we can get metrics that, speak a little more to than just the numbers. With quarterly, and that was something I had been looking at with the quarterly report, we only have 6 court dates a quarter.
Yeah.
So to Councilmember Heller's point as well, some of those may not be as
Eventful.
yeah, during that quarter. And so we can kind of separate those and say, hey, you know, at this point last year, more like the financial reports we provide, you know, year over year, what is it looking like? 2 years ago, what did it look like? You know, have our accident rates climbed greatly? And I know a lot of that you also get from PD, but how we're seeing that then flow from PD in through the courts.
But I do think,
And
I do
that's
think
why-
staff can provide a lot of these updates that you're referring to
Yes.
since we're leading the efforts.
Yes.
But I would expect him to also review it.
Sure. Oh,
And he does.
agreed. Absolutely.
Okay.
Couldn't agree
That's
more.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things I wanted, which is what you just said, Kelly, which is everybody saying, hey, we want to see what's going on out there. Not the things that we're talking about. We get that from the police department. I don't know, we're not getting it from the court. I mean, you might get it from the court, but I mean, I expect to hear about it from the police department way before the court does it. The court's an adjudication of something that happened way earlier. So I just want to make sure that when people are saying, hey, we want to hear what's going on out there, what are we really talking about here? I mean, if accidents are going up, if DUIs are going up, if break-ins are going up, if things are going, I want to hear about it from the police department, let's face it.
Well, but what I want to hear about in that, and then I'll defer to the city manager in 1 second, or city attorney in 1 second, is, you know, if for some reason our police or code enforcement are issuing X citations on something, and yet only 1% of them are resulting in a conviction, then that tells us that something is going on, that there's a disconnect, that we need to either do better on the police side or on the prosecution side or dealing with the defense. That's the metric that I expect to come from a court system, because I can already read, like you just said, how many citations were issued for each thing. But now the question is, are we getting convictions for them?
And what are the trends?
Yeah.
And what are the trends?
And related to that, and Mayor, you've alluded to it too, but I would offer for council's consideration that an emphasis on priorities for council is probably most effective if you direct it in the prosecutor's direction, so that they know what is important, what to pursue, what difficulties they may or may not be encountering in securing convictions or in, you know, prosecuting the matters. And that trying to, you mentioned, you know, without putting your thumb on the scale, but I think the prosecution is probably the right vehicle for that. And they work with me, and so we can talk about that.
So I was going to ask a question similar to that for you, City Attorney Guckenberger. How you were so helpful when we started this process because you knew more about it than we did. And many of us have said, that's on us, right? We don't know how to evaluate. We weren't evaluating our judge. So I would love input from you about how we can more effectively evaluate our judge. And maybe you need to do some research on that or talk to other people. But, you know, you do talk to the prosecutors. And so maybe it's also a semi-annual report from you, from your perspective, about what you're hearing and what you're seeing.
We can do that. I mean,
I don't know.
because the prosecution is under my, you know, purview. We nominally appear before the judge. It's a unique relationship in the municipal world, right? It's a lot more collaborative, as Director Newman said. And so there's things we work on together, especially at this phase where this city is right now. But a lot of places it's a lot more separate. I will tell you that I am aware. So in other jurisdictions, sometimes council people will observe court. To Councilor Holland's point, is it the character? Is it, you know, is it the atmosphere? Is it the culture of the city that we expect, that the service delivery is there, the professionalism is there, and such as that. So that is something that it's all within your purview to gather that data anytime, right? So, and that's something I do know that other council members do from time to time. That being said, and I'm in this, but you don't always know exactly what's going on, and so how to evaluate that is, where do you stop? Where do you know, what do you drill in on? And so I can definitely talk to the prosecutor. I mean, I did before this appointment, and so, you know, we had a high level of confidence going in, but I can continue that, and we can find an appropriate venue for me to report. I would say probably no news is generally good news the way it's operating, but what I'm hearing is that a little more proactive approach is something that would be appreciated. So I'll do some thinking on that.
And I think that, that you're absolutely right with the prosecutor, and we should have thought of that as well. But I do think there is an opportunity because there is oftentimes a great amount of discretion in sentencing. And I know just anecdotally from the interview process when we interviewed other people who had served as municipal judges that there are sometimes sort of a disconnect between the level of consequence that a community would like to see attached to certain behaviors versus, and that the joke example that I used, and it's really only half joking, is that we take our trails very seriously, and motorized vehicles on the trails, it's not oh, that's okay. That's important to us. There may be other things where we need to communicate that those things are the priorities for the community, and that we're looking to him to enforce our laws very strictly in that sense, or whatever that might be. But I just think those things are so few and far between. And I think that I just don't see us being able to have that kind of priority discussion ourselves more than once a year, much less, So I think to summarize where I think we are, is that an annual report where he comes and presents like this, which is included in the contract, is appropriate. And at least the quarterly reports that we get from staff with some enhanced metrics and, as city manager said, take a stab at enhancing those quarterly reports a little bit more. And then the gray area that I have in the middle is there something in addition that comes directly from the judge or not?
Well, I guess, and I don't know about that. I mean, again, all I want to say is that, again, and there's always room for improvement. I mean, always, as they always say, show me a man that's satisfied and I'll show you a failure. There's always an opportunity to do better. But I just submit, and I think everybody will agree, we've made a huge improvement and incrementally more of an improvement in this function in Cherry Hills Village than in any other department or any other thing we've overseen this year. Let's give it an opportunity to see how it works out before we get overly involved. That'd be just my 2 cents here.
So I get a thumbs up from Doug. Yep, Councilor McGuire.
So I guess what I was asking was that he does sign off on the quarterly reports. I don't know if that addresses your.
That he signs off on it,
Signs off on the quarterly reports. And I would ask during the first year maybe that we do have a 6-month report on the update. Well, tell you what, I think we ought to see what the quarterly report looks like. Because maybe we ought to wait and see what the quarterly report looks like and then revisit. But I would, so go ahead.
Yeah, and I guess maybe one something that might address some of your additional concerns is that we ask staff for an update on the variety, the software, those projects.
Code updates.
And I don't know that we need to, we'd like the updates as there's something to update. Okay. And then I think, are we comfortable with that then? So he comes to us once a year, he reviews the quarterly reports. Staff is going to work on the quarterly reports to beef them up a little bit, and then staff will update us on the court work plan items. Does that sound good?
And then I still think we need a court liaison on the city council. Someone who is responsible for, and whether maybe it's going and watching court once a month or once a quarter, or just touching base with the judge. How's everything going? What's your budget? Someone that does a liaison for the court in the same way we have a liaison for the police department, for finance, for public works. It's just one more point of communication. And I'm assuming we would have to pay for that hour of the judge's time. But at $165, I don't know that that's a bad thing.
Thoughts? Anybody?
Nobody?
I mean, so I will admit, as mayor, I am not acting as a liaison, and so I haven't done it in going on 4 years now. As liaisons to our existing departments, how often are you meeting with your department? I mean, maybe I was the slacker, but I really only met with Jay when it was budget time and we went over budget projects.
I think it depends on I know you probably meet monthly, right?
Yeah. Karen's meeting with community development, right?
Monthly, I meet
Oh,
quarterly.
wait, no, you're new, the crier, yeah.
She's crier. But I'd be happy to be that person if nobody else is interested in it. It's just, it very much concerns me that we ended up in a situation that was somewhat dangerous for the city. And
Yeah, I'm just wondering if the council is the right.
He reports.
I know that the judge reports to the council. I just don't know that it's the right avenue of communication.
Can I
I
ask?
don't know. Yep.
Yeah, Chris, is that, again, back to your experience, is that pretty typical? Have you seen in other cities or? City attorney?
I've never worked anywhere that had a council liaison program. So.
At all?
Yes, at all. So.
That's going to be.
Have I ever seen it?
Okay.
Have I ever seen it?
Never mind.
No, I will just tell you, I'm a huge fan of the liaison program writ large. When we interview folks, we like kind of brag about it and say, guess what? You get to do this. It's a way for there to ensure alignment, council staff alignment. And all that. It's a great thing. So don't take that as some sort of weird jab. It absolutely is not. But the whole liaison program, you guys get to,
And I would think he
make
would.
it up as you go.
He would appreciate having someone on council who knows this is the person I can call if I have a question or a concern or whatever.
Try it out, yeah.
I mean, I think that, it's up to you guys. What do you?
I think it's worth, I think it makes sense to give it a shot in that regard. I mean, and again, that's the whole point is the liaisons are there to provide input to the staff, and in this case to the judge, with regard to what the whole council is thinking, so that that staff person or the judge in this case doesn't need to be coming all the time to kind of figure it out. It's providing broad information, if you will.
I'll just offer for council's consideration that gets a little sticky when it comes to separation of powers and appearances, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is an opportunity in all of our liaison positions for them to go south. And that had for people to, remember that we don't, and the court is a little bit different because the judge reports to us, but, when we're liaising with community development or finance, like they don't report to us, they report to the city manager. And I
Right.
think there is an opportunity, if the position isn't exercised appropriately, there's an opportunity to become a little bit too involved in
Right.
the
Yep.
day-to-day operations. And so I guess if we wanted to try a court liaison, my recommendation would be that isn't the person who comes and observes court, like anybody can do that, but that person serve as a resource for the judge, as a direct appointee, as someone that he can come to if he has questions, doesn't understand something the council has communicated. And I think to Earl's point, if there's any two-way communication, but I think it needs to be very, if we're gonna do it, it needs to be very high level. This is the one area where micromanaging Public Works and saying, no, do these streets instead of those streets. I mean, it's frustrating for our staff, but that's not a problem. Micromanaging the court, that's, well, okay. Micromanaging the court is a problem.
The consequences are different, that is correct.
Right.
Yes.
There's no question.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone's suggesting that. I mean, it's a liaison.
Well, I guess so I would like to have a better idea of what the liaison would do. Like I said, I mean, currently our liaisons just meet with their department heads around budget time, except for the crier, where, you know, you review the article that the council writes and, you know.
I don't know, I kind of sense that this liaison would do something like what I thought informally was going to be semi-annually, if we're not going to have that report. But it would just be a quick ability to touch base, and anything you need from us on council that's unclear, anything, well, we're hearing that, you know, we would like to, on behalf of council, emphasize, you know, public safety is a big deal for us, or, you know, whatever it is. That's kind of what I'm looking at, a little more touch, and even if it's every 6 months, just a quick check-in, almost type of liaison meeting.
I mean, I think that'd be fine, but if that is I would like it to be very clear what the role of the liaison is.
Yeah, I think
So that,
it's lighter than the liaisons for others, for the very reason that our city attorney has mentioned, that we can't, you know, dictate, we want you to be the max and not have any discretion on, you know, something. But I do think that there are times when we can convey that we are hearing that speeding in school zones is a really big problem, and we want to emphasize that our children need to be safe. Something like that, I don't know.
well, and that's what I think the annual review is for, the whole council to say that, not, and like I said, you know, I don't think, we're not gonna have more than once a year, I mean, we do a retreat once a year to discuss our entire next year's work plan. We are not gonna have discussions about the court priorities every other meeting. I mean, you know, so we're gonna do it once a year.
The other perspective is, I think we're mostly talking about us doing, you know, overseeing. But I think it is important to have a liaison where the judge can come to someone. And the prior judge did come to me at one point. I shared that with, I think, both the city attorney and Chris at the time. And I think it's an important thing to have.
And that part I would, like I said, I would absolutely agree with that, and that if we're gonna have a liaison position, I think that would be one of the responsibilities, is that you serve as the contact point. There, I can think of several incidents that arose in the last year that it would have been great for the judge or the prosecutor or anyone to have somebody on council to go to and say, you know, this happened, or we need some guidance on that. And as a conduit, as a point person for them to reach out to council, I think that's great. When it starts to become council directive, that's where I get very uncomfortable. And so I think, yeah, having a meeting, you know, every other 6 months or something is fine.
Well, I'm all of this sounds good. I just want to make sure that we're, and like I say, I don't know what the judge, the council liaison is not somebody that whoever it is, judge, staff, whoever it is, to go around their normal reporting position. I mean, if it's not, hey, I got a problem here, well, dude, my first advice would be, you need to go talk to your director or the city manager or the city attorney. Not, I mean, that's not what in my view, that's not what the liaison is for. And I never operate that way. I'll sit back and say, hey, here's what I think you're going to hear from council. You do what you want. I mean, it's never anything other than that. And I think that. Well, the judge, well, I guess, yeah, the judge does report to council. I mean.
Yeah, one other thing I might suggest you'd consider is before you make any decisions, given that the judge has his own ethical constraints, to ask him what his level of comfort might be and what kind of guardrails or boundaries he might be comfortable operating in this.
That's a good suggestion.
We can certainly get that information. It sounds like what maybe we should do, there's a lot of ideas. We can schedule a future report in our future council meeting to just bring the topic back with some of this additional input, and do our best to maybe frame up sort of the options that, I don't want to make it exhaustive, right? But maybe just do a couple of 2 or 3
Specific
types.
to a council liaison role.
Specific to a council liaison, yes.
Yes, okay. I think that sounds like a plan. All right, let's continue with reports from staff.
Unfortunately, we have a lot of reports from staff tonight, I believe. I will turn it over to Director Newman.
I don't have one.
Oops.
No report from me.
Excuse me. To follow up on Councilor McGuire's note, as you've seen in your monthly report from us for a few months now, Kent Denver has had an application to do an expansion to their childcare facility at their Blackmore Hall is the name of the building. We don't do a lot of those administratively. This particular application does not meet the criteria for a public hearing, but we have let some folks know. There's the increase in the square footage is underneath what the code requires for a public hearing. It's beyond the boundaries of the property to the extent that it would trigger a public hearing. There's no change to the parking access or number of employees, anything of that nature. It really is just an expansion of their daycare facilities in order to comply with county code requirements for the square footage associated per existing child that they have. So I'm happy to answer questions, or we can speak offline about it. But that is on the precipice of an approval, and so here in the next few weeks, they will receive approval and in all likelihood start a project.
Just one question.
Yeah,
No
Councilor
fire
Hill.
life safety changes as a result of?
Well, they're doing an addition, which is going to require some additional fire stuff, but they have their approval from South Metro Fire.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, anything else? No, okay.
Nothing
Commander.
else.
Well, as you all are aware, it's been a little busy, unusually busy the last couple weeks. Most importantly, I think probably on the top of everybody's mind is our recent officer-involved shooting. So I just wanted to kind of give you an update on that. First of all, I'll start off with, although it's a rare occasion here, I can assure you that unfortunately the chief and I have been involved in many incidents like this. So you can be rest assured that we know what we're doing and we're handling it appropriately. That being said, there is a process to this. There's a lot of different entities that are involved in this investigation. Some of the kind of quirks here that it didn't happen in the city. So there's a couple of entities involved in this investigation at this point. Number one, because it occurred at a location in the city of Inglewood, what happens is the home city where it occurs, so the city of Inglewood in this case, they will take over and be the primary investigative force on the actions of the suspect at the time during the incident. Now, the 18th Judicial District has their critical incident response team that they come out and they will take over the investigation into the officer's actions during the incident. And then in conjunction with that, we also do an internal investigation into whether or not the officer followed policies and procedures as we have set within the department. Now, there's a lot of moving parts to this because of all the different agencies. It's not unusual. These investigations can take upwards of months. So unfortunately, until everything gets done, we don't get a final package per se as to the completed investigation until everything is done and everybody has their parts done. So we can't provide any updates as far as how that's going or the inner workings of that, but of course, when we do receive that, we will definitely share that with you.
Can I ask just one question about the underlying arrest? Well, I don't know if it was an arrest, but, so there was a suspicion of car theft? Was it someone came into the village and, the flock thing, and this person looks like someone who stole a car? Or was it somebody stealing a car in the village?
It was initially a call of a vehicle being stolen within the village.
Okay.
And we were able to locate that person and arrest that person.
And was the person who was arrested a village resident or from outside of the village?
They were not a resident.
And was it a woman?
Yes.
Okay. I just made a sexist assumption that it was a man, and when I saw the name, I thought, well, that doesn't seem like a man's name, so I was curious. Okay, thank you.
While the investigation is one piece of this, at the end of the day, the person who was apprehended went through surgery and survived, correct? Is that person then arrested and separately is going through the process of being arrested for stealing a vehicle?
So they were initially arrested at the time for the motor vehicle theft. And yes, they will, once their medical condition has been stabilized, then they will continue with that process and go to county. And then Inglewood, based on what their findings of their investigation, could potentially file additional charges against them.
Well, obviously, this is a very scary incident for, I'm sure, everyone involved. And we know that these investigations are ongoing and would not want to influence that in any way. But it's difficult. We want to be so supportive of our police officers. It's difficult to feel like we don't really have the opportunity to do that. And so I hope you will communicate that we appreciate all of our officers, but everyone in particular for putting themselves and their health and safety on the line on behalf of our residents. And once this is all concluded, we hope we can move forward from there.
And I assume we're providing mental health support for the officer.
Absolutely. We provide those services year round, and especially now during any type of critical incident. Not only do we offer it, but the officer or officers that are involved in a critical incident are mandated to go see somebody and be cleared from them to be able to return to work.
Who specializes in this type of incident?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then that's also made available for anybody that was there, witness it, or just, are affected by it just from being around and working with the other individuals.
I do want to just follow up on that real quick since we are on this topic. And I appreciate the mayor's comments about the inability to really, I do think that there are some indicators though that this is going well. We are going through an interview process for a communications coordinator. Meanwhile, the police department has really taken the lead on that particular incident and working with the consultant that they have that specializes in police communications. I think they did an excellent job about making sure that there were no wrong narratives or wrong rabbit holes that started to get chased in the media or the public court of opinion. I think they really did a great job of keeping it more based on what actually happened as opposed to allowing it to run away from anybody. So hats off to the entire team. The amount of work and expertise and wisdom that goes into making that so that it doesn't get away from us is considerable. So thank you for that. That's another indication that things really are going well on that front. So well done.
And thank you for that. And to that point, that's why it's very important that we put our narrative out there quickly so that we can kind of cut that off, because we've seen far too often across the nation, and even here a couple of years ago, if we just stay silent and don't share anything, then it does quickly get out of control and rumors start spreading and nobody knows what's real or what's not. So it's very important to get that, at least some information out there, because if we don't provide anything, then people are just going to start making it up.
And
Thank you
then,
for-
I don't know if you're done with your report, but I did have a question about the investigation into the fatal car accident on March 2nd. Do we know, is that investigation completed, or about how long does that take? And
So that is not completed yet. We're still working on that. We have to go through the process of obtaining warrants so that we can do vehicle inspections and get some data from the different vehicles that were involved. So that is still ongoing at this point.
I know that there are media outlets interested in the police report when it is available, and so I just have been, have gotten at least one question. I want to make sure I am providing the proper information.
And I know some of that process is going to take place this week. So we are moving towards, I think we just got back early this week or late last week, our search warrant signed from the judge so that we can go execute those.
Thank you.
I had a question about the crime reports page, which showed 2026 over 2025, increase in burglary, criminal mischief, and theft. I guess if these are raw numbers, it's not a huge difference, but still, usually your trends are the other way, which is why it stuck out to me. Can you just talk about that at all, or?
Yeah, so I don't have the particulars on the exact cases here. Looks like we had 2 in February where we've had none in 2025 as far as burglaries. And then the criminal mischiefs, we have 1 more year-to-date this year than we did last year. Again, I don't know the particulars of these specific cases, but I can speak to cases that I have seen in general, which are related to, once again, a topic that we've brought up here and discussed and continuously put out to the community, that garages are being left open, car doors are being unlocked, and opportunities,
nice weather.
opportunities are being presented, and there's always going to be people that will be happy to take advantage of that if you present it to them.
Thanks.
It's the nice weather. Everybody's outside. Director Goldie.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't thank council one more time for a communications person, because the first 2 issues of my report, I wouldn't have to be talking to you about. So we really do appreciate that. I don't know if council has been getting calls, but staff has. XL is out doing their every so often 3 or 4 years trimming. There is nothing the city can do. XL has the right to trim their power lines and actually are required to trim them 6 feet horizontally and 10 feet vertically. That, in a lot of cases, especially here in Cherry Hills with our dense foliage, is going to be increased and has been increased to 10 by 10. So that means there's going to be big chunks of trees missing in people's yards. You can send those people to us, but we send them directly to XL and their tree contractors. We truly have no control over that. If they say they need to trim and clear that, it doesn't have to be trimmed like we would be required to trim it in a healthy manner. It's all about safety, and there is nothing the city can do about that.
Where
So
do you know where they're working?
they
tend
are
to have
all
like
over
a-
the entire city. They don't,
Really? Okay.
they're just, I think, doing maybe the entire city with all of the above ground power lines in the.
'Cause I feel like ours is like clockwork every 5 years.
Yep, I think it's 4 or 5 year
And I know
process.
they were just through about 2 years ago in our neighborhood, so I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how much they do and what parts of the cities are on different
Okay.
rotations.
I was just wondering if they had a particular area that people
Yeah.
might.
They've been all over, really.
Okay.
They've been in Old Cherry Hills and on Quincy and the south.
Will they be done before the next crier issue comes out? Or is it
I'll have
worth
to
putting
look and
something in the
see.
crier?
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Good idea. Another one that's out of our hands, but we have been working with City of Inglewood and Denver Water. They have an 8-week project that will close Clarkson Avenue from Oxford Lane to Martin Lane for up to 8 weeks. There will be
Wow.
local traffic only, so residents will be able to get in and out, but there will be a detour. You can't go straight down Clarkson. You'll come to one end or the other end of that project. So this has been in the works for a number of years, and one of the reasons why we haven't paved Clarkson for so long.
Well, that one resident will be delighted.
And so Denver Water and Inglewood are doing an emergency interconnect. So the two providers can, if there's an emergency or an outage in one, they can share water resources. So it is a safety issue, and we are working with them. They wanted to start this week, but they hadn't done any notifications. So we asked that they delay it a week and get some door hangers out and get more information out to our residents to make sure that they understand what's going on.
So
We need to do a
Oxford to the north entrance onto Martin, right? Because Martin Lane is a whole.
Martin's got the two, so it's the north, yes.
Okay.
But
that
again,
sounds like it
residents
needs
will,
to be a social media post, and
yeah.
they're
and-
doing the door hangers in the area, but lots of people use
Clarkson.
Clarkson.
Yeah, and we are working on getting that out. The next one, cell coverage. Staff has been working with Crown Castle since we met and talked about this. We've requested that they provide coverage maps that include those macro towers just outside. So staff says Crown Castle has requested those maps from the provider. They're a little pessimistic if they're going to get those from the providers or not. So then we asked them if they can't, they presented a similar map in their PowerPoint to City Council that staff had not seen. So if they don't get those maps from the providers, they're going to use that one as an overlay to show us what that would look like with the improved coverage and those macro towers just outside of the city limits. So we don't have any more information on that until we see what they're going to provide us so we can pass on more information to
And
City
it
Council.
could be that our first step after getting that information isn't to give it to you. It could be that our first step is to meet with Crown, because we also did some analysis about the map that they gave us to put in your packet versus the maps they showed you on the screen. And we have questions.
I think this has been, this map issue has been kind of floating around since our retreat discussion. I'm wondering if it would, and I would imagine it would cost us some money, maybe not a lot, to reach out to once we get whatever maps we're going to get from Crown Castle, to reach out to the consultants that did the initial study that has the sort of current conditions map and say, help us translate this into this so that, the maps that you provided,
Apples to apples.
so that we can get some sort of apples to apples comparison, because it's, I think we're all really relying very heavily on the coverage that we saw, and it has occurred to me as I've been considering it more and more that there's just so much room for interpretation.
Yeah,
That
great.
we probably need to have a little bit more confidence in.
The maps. Great minds. Jay, you can talk about, we've already reached out to
Yeah, so we've reached out to our consultant and talked to them. We've actually showed them the maps that we were provided, but we're holding off until we have something for them to react to. So until we get the completed map with the macro towers from Crown, we don't want to have our consultants, because of the costs, spinning their wheels, and
Yeah.
we're going to give them everything before we say, hey, we need your help with interpretation here.
Okay.
And lastly, the signal warrant study. We're moving ahead with getting the warrant completed. We've brought a consultant on board to complete this comprehensive study. They do understand how important this is to the city. They understand how emotionally involved a lot of people are. So we have gotten a firm that I think is going to be the best for the city. They fully understand everything that's going on here. And so I've been in contact with CDOT to talk to them about a few things. We will be collecting data at some point in the future. I don't want to give specifics about any dates, but that data will be collected. We don't want that to be skewed, so we are doing everything we can to try to collect that data without residents being able to skew that data. We expect that to be completed in early May, so we can have the consultant come and present that to City Council at the May 19th meeting, and then they're here to answer any technical questions that council might have. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Is
Hey,
that-
one question, Jay, back to Excel. I've noticed that every time, there have been crews out there digging around the bottoms of the poles, and then it looks like they're putting wire, do you know what they're doing? I mean, I have no idea, and it's been going on for a couple of weeks. Have you guys, and you might go by and you see wires coming out of the ground around all the
My staff
poles.
hasn't said anything, but we can look into, do you have a specific area that?
Everywhere. I mean.
Everywhere?
I mean,
Okay.
It's not bothering me, I just was curious if you, I just thought, what are these guys doing?
Yeah, we can look in that. It could be, because other utility providers use those poles, whether
So
it's
it might be
cable.
another-
Yeah, it could be, but and even just to occupy, they're supposed to have a
I say it's
permit.
Excel, I don't know that it is
Yeah.
Excel, it's just.
We'll look into it.
For example, I think there's some cabling going on in Quincy that's not Excel. It's common
Okay.
cables.
It could be comms, and I'm not aware of every permit that's open right now, but if they're out there working, we'll make sure they're permitted.
All right, is that Manager Black over there?
Yes. On behalf of the Art Commission, I'd like to invite you all to their next artist talk. That's going to be Wednesday, April 22nd from 6 to 8 here in City Hall. We'll be hearing from 3 different artists, one of whom is our current Sculpture on Loan artist. So more information and the RSVP are on the website. Thanks.
Thank you. City Clerk, nothing? City Attorney? City Manager?
First, I did have a question for Councilman Eber. When you went to Jason Crow's event, did you ask him if he would consider preempting the state government who wants to preempt the local governments regarding housing legislation? That may be a way to fight fire with fire.
Federal law that states.
Yeah, exactly.
you
The
preempt.
preempts, yes.
Yeah,
What-
I love it.
Right? You got to get creative.
I did not ask that question, but I'm more than happy to.
There we go. We got to think outside the box here. I did want to update council. We've talked a lot. There's been a lot of discussion about things that once we do have a communications coordinator, they will be having a lot of these conversations with you. We did have interviews in person last week. This week we are down to 2 finalists for more targeted final conversations. I think overall we're very pleased with how the process has gone, and I really do expect for us to have a great candidate either way we go here. So, assuming we can get to negotiated amount, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm very hopeful. Fingers crossed. The timing of it is just tragically hilarious in a way. The only other thing I guess I have for council, thanks to all the staff for all your updates, and thanks to staff, we have been presented with some additional opportunities in this first quarter that we didn't have on our work plan, and it's been a lot to juggle this and introduce a lot of these other efforts that on top of our already busy schedule. So hats off to staff. Really, genuinely, I am sincerely appreciative of everything you guys have been doing, and you guys have taken these moments and performed with high degree of difficulty, excellent job. So thank you to all staff. With that said, the timing of this update is hilarious. I'm actually taking a week off. My son has a spring break, the March 30th through April 3rd. So I will be off for that week. In case council needs anything, you can contact Deputy City Manager Golding.
All right. Well, if that's it, if there's nothing else, we'll stand adjourned at 8:30 p.m.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Doug.
Doug.
Safe travels.
Patty's Day. Have a great St. Patty's Day, the rest of it.
By the way, Doug, I'm impressed. Watching you,
I'll have dinner right now.
I'm impressed with you, Doug, because I'm telling you right now, watching this, there's no way I would be